play.
Speaking of Biden, after seeing that clip you shared of George W. talking about Ukraine, about one man invading Ukraine, but he said Iraq and then kind of laughed at his own dumb flub.
And then he said Iraq too. He goes, well, Iraq too. And I was like, talk about yourself, bro. What are you?
He's like,
you
I
just
don't even
compared
care.
yourself to
I don't
Putin,
even
you
care.
moron. But dude, I just want to see a long form sit down chat between Bush and Biden, because I feel like Bush would sit there making himself laugh at his dumb jokes and flubs, and Biden would fall sound asleep. It would just be one of the best.
Or he'd be like, I have a thought and it's gonna form a sentence, and then he'll just go into the next sentence like it has nothing to do with what he just said.
Oh man, have you ever listened or watched Kyle Dunnigan?
Yes, I've seen his obviously I've seen him on Reno 911, but I've seen his Bill Maher impression, of course.
Bill Maher was great, and I remember when Joe Rogan showed Bill Maher that impersonation. Bill was not.
I don't get it.
I was like, dude, he got you spot on.
Yeah.
But
Bill Maher is not comfortable poking fun at himself.
He is not.
He's not like other comedians that way.
But Dunnigan does some great Biden, and I've only seen a couple of his shorts. I have no idea if he does a full show or I don't know. I can't vouch for overall quality of his stuff.
Everybody has a podcast. He's a comedian, so he has a podcast, right?
I've never seen like his full performances or whatever, but I know the short clips that I've seen, especially the ones of him doing Biden with that face swap, and he does a great Biden impersonation too. He's great.
Interesting. Okay. Biden's a tough one to nail down. Even the SNL guy, I'm like, this is a struggle for you.
He does one where Biden and Ben Shapiro are talking. He does a great Ben Shapiro too.
Shapiro, that's a good one to nail down.
He talks so fast and
talk real fast. Here's the thing.
He nails it, but then he does Biden.
We are to really say that in this case,
he perfectly gets the words wrong, and it just cracks me up, man. He's like, hey, Benifer Shrimpo, it's me, Barack Ojiden.
I mean, he can't run for another term, right? He's gonna be like in his 90s. Like it just can't. He just can't.
The part that got me is when he's talking. He goes, hey, look. He just falls asleep, like as he leans.
It's gonna be like on Parks and Rec, the Newport guy in the wheelchair, right? Where he's just basically dead, like.
But he runs the company. Okay.
Yeah. And then that gold digging chick like marries him or whatever, and he's
I have a feeling Biden's gonna have to run again because of electability concerns. Like, are they gonna put somebody else at front? Is there gonna be enough time for that? I think they're just gonna go the lazy route.
Dude, like that party honestly, if they prop him up like Weekend at Bernie's, I might be more likely to vote for him.
Yeah,
because that's hilarious.
A dead guy.
Yeah, that's hilarious. He's got like puppet strings on. Like I would vote for that. I think.
He dances when certain music. What is it? I don't remember what the song is, but he dances during certain music. Yeah.
Yeah, just like that. Exactly. And then all of a sudden they just play an audio of him saying like, I'm a pony boy soldier man or whatever whatever his quote was.
Malarkey.
Oh man.
Come on, man.
Come on. That's malarkey.
Is he not from the South? Because he talks like he's from the South sometimes. Like with some of his expressions. He gives a lot of Southernisms that are like
no idea. I don't
know, like malarkey and stuff. I'm like, who the hell says that except people in the South?
Old dudes, super old dudes.
Yeah. Apparently, people that lived through the Depression, guys. Well, I guess we're still in one.
All I know
we're in a perma depression now. That's what's so great about it.
Listen, great. All I know is I am looking forward to the day, and it's been a while, where I'm not embarrassed about who our president is. So I'm looking forward to that day. Hopefully, it's coming soon.
I mean. We'll see.
It's been a little while.
It's been a while, yeah. I'm like trying to think back.
I didn't agree with everything Obama did, but I was not embarrassed of him. I thought he was.
No, I was like, hey, if you want to go to like China and talk to that guy, that's fine. That's fine. I'm not concerned you're going to start.
Obama's a great talker. That guy's real good with the words.
I described him to someone who was going off about how much they didn't like him. I was like, yeah, but you have to admit, he's very charming, and he was a great statesman, one of the better statesmen we've had as a president in recent
memory.
Diplomat, statesman, spokesperson.
Very well spoken, yeah.
Very human seeming. I'm not saying that he isn't one of the elites or whatever people want to say, but he just seemed more human than any of the rest of them, honestly. But anyway, whatever.
He seemed down to make fun of himself, and I always appreciate when presidents can punch down to themselves.
Yes.
Right.
I mean, he always won me over with like
the
anger translator thing with Keenan, Michael Keenan.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect.
And when he started getting upset, quote unquote, in the script, and like, he's like, I'm tired of listening. He was getting mad, and like, and Keenan was like, whoa, calm down.
That was good. Like
That was
he's
good.
actually got good timing. Like
He does, yeah.
Yeah.
I know. I feel like Bush would be well back then, not now because he's old and it would be a tough time carrying a conversation with him. But back then, I would have. He's like a person you would have a beer with. more or less.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But not in like it. You'd party with him for sure.
Yeah.
Not in like a let's talk about things that are important type
sure.
of way.
Like I know back then people talked about how he was an idiot and he was embarrassing, but again, when you compare him to the last couple of experiences we've had,
Yeah.
it's like, boy, I miss those days.
I know.
Man.
man.
Remember the most embarrassing thing we had going on was the Mission Accomplished banner that actually
Yeah.
wasn't. Remember that? That was the only thing.
Premature mission accomplished banner. It was like a month later or whatever.
Mission accomplished.
Oh man. I still use. That's why I use that. That's one of my favorite gifts.
It's so good. It's so good.
Oh, politics.
See, I feel like more people are kind of like our conversation here, kind of making fun of everything, admiring objectively things that are like, yeah, this is actually good, but that is not what you see portrayed. So anyway, that is a topic I'm going to get off of because no one wants to hear our take on this. But what we didn't record at the beginning was that we came up with a great plan for ending this Russia-Ukraine conflict. I believe, just like in the game of Risk, when you move all your units down into a country to invade it, you leave yourself wide open for attack. All that we have to do is take our troops up through Alaska and across that little connection from Alaska to.
Yep.
There's an island right there in between them.
What's that one called?
Like a really, really tiny
Karkachuk?
island.
It's the one that Sarah Palin can see from her backyard. It's that little,
Right, yeah.
it's that little spot back there. You just take your troops over there, and they won't see it coming. They'll have one troop per area. And
Well,
I know it's like a meme or it's fun. Well, back then memes weren't a thing, but it was like a punchline or whatever. It was a butt of the joke. But I mean, some people can't actually see Russia from Alaska.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
It's kind of crazy.
yes, there's no saying that can't happen because they are connected. But for her to be like, we're keeping an eye on them, like, no, shut up.
With what? Your telescopes? I don't.
they're all
understand.
congregating right there, like in that one spot.
She's out there with a rifle on.
You got snipers on the beach. I don't know what kind of beach Alaska has, but
Oh man. By the way, my wife and I started watching a little bit of Deadliest Catch, just kind of as in the background type show, because it's on. I forget which service it's on.
Travel maybe.
Which I think means it's on Discovery. The Discovery.
Oh yeah, that sounds
Discovery
about right.
Plus.
Discovery Plus. So anyway, we started watching part of that, and I'm pretty sure that mostly takes, at least the first season. I don't know if it continues. I think it takes place up in one of those islands off of Alaska. I forget what they're called, but they're like, I mean, it looks miserable.
Well, yeah, there is in Alaska. Miserable. I watched a TikTok that was like, did you know there's an island between Alaska and Russia, and it's like right there, and it's like a population of like, I don't know, 10 or something. There's like nobody that lives there.
10.
But like, yeah, it's just like a midway point from Alaska to Russia,
right.
Which is kind of crazy. And like, it's a bigger town than that, but it's still kind of interesting. And I think it's part of Alaska. I think it's considered part of the United States.
I mean, to be able to see, literally, you can see another continent. Like, just
That's
look
so crazy.
It's
that
wacky,
is pretty crazy.
man.
Yeah.
It's when it was Pangea, guys. It used to be Pangea, and then it separated.
Oh,
Right?
Science Corner
Remember
with
that?
Dan.
Yeah, science. Yeah.
Is that what the cavemen called it?
Yes.
Pangea. Is that how long ago that was?
That was actually when the Earth was flat, so the land was. No, never mind.
Look at this guy, he's from Pangea.
Freaking Pangeans.
So I have no interest in visiting some of those what look to be like miserably cold kind of fishing towns that don't like, it looks horrible up there to me.
Yeah.
But there are islands I think would be great to visit that are not your typical like tropical experiences, like the Pharaoh Islands. The pictures I've seen look amazing.
Where is that?
So it's over, I don't remember which direction, but it's in the Iceland area.
Oh,
sure.
Yeah.
So it's like northwest. Maybe
It kind of looks a little. Every time I see images of Iceland, I'm like, oh, it looks like Seattle or something. Because like, except there's more fishing, obviously. But
obviously,
in terms of like weather, I just see clouds.
You have the you have the volcanoes, but it's so green and it just looks really.
Renee's
really cool.
Renee's brother a few years ago with his wife went to Iceland, and he said it was super awesome.
Yeah.
And like the what is it, the hot springs? That's what I was trying to think of. The hot springs there are super cool.
I'm pretty sure they like have potentially active volcanoes, and they have like alarms that go off if there's about to be an eruption. Like
they actually use that to their advantage with the roads, to like heat up the roads. so the
Oh.
snow and ice don't kind of just linger. Like super smart, right? Like just kind of have the hot water just
You
Dude.
have to adapt
help
when
with
you're
the
around crap
yeah.
like that. Yeah.
That's pretty
Yeah.
smart.
The
Yeah.
islands, whatever islands you want to call it, whatever is around Ireland. There's like islands or not islands. Shit. I
Ireland
know
or
I'm
Iceland?
thinking of something. No, Ireland. There's
Ireland.
I'm just thinking of coastlines off of Ireland that
Sure.
are just freaking gorgeous, and
Oh yeah.
that's one of the main countries I want to go to whenever I get the courage to go out of the country for once.
So there are several islands. I
That
think.
in Germany.
I think there are several islands that are considered part of Ireland. I think. But they're little, but yeah, they look cool.
Is that where Ron ends up? Is it Ireland or Scotland?
I think he's in Scotland, right?
Scotland, yeah.
I
When
think
he's like
Scotland.
when he's like reading the poem off of that cliff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a beautiful view. Like that whole area there, like just it's gorgeous. Yeah.
Well, it's one of the many things that I love about the character of Leslie, because if she didn't have those elements, I would find her to be exhausting and probably annoying. But she knows people so well, knows what they love. And so like everything from pretending to do a surprise party for him, but actually she had a completely secluded room with just steak and his favorite old war movie. And you know what I mean? Like
he was so stressed out.
Yeah, he was so stressed out. He was like, let's get this over with.
His hair all disheveled. And, yeah. Like Anne. There's an episode where Anne brings it up. She's like, you care so hard that people just can't compete with you. But like they appreciate it because you obviously do love the people that you love so much. But then it's overwhelming because she's just insane and doesn't sleep and
All right, so Faroe Islands are straight north of Scotland, southeast of Iceland. It's actually its own country, so it's
okay. Oh, okay. That's
cool.
Yeah, I mean, hey, that's cool. You can go to both if you ever made a trip out of it. You can go to both Iceland and Scotland.
Yeah, man. I'd love to visit. I'd love to visit all those places.
Yeah, Scotland's got a lot. Man, there's so much history in Ireland and Scotland, and like
I just gotta get my kids to grow up and get out of here, so my wife and I can travel. You know,
well,
right?
You gotta wait for all 37.
You'll be like,
well,
you won't
okay,
be home
so
for like 2 years.
You guys probably don't know this. Keep this between us and whoever's listening. We only had kids to make a bunch of money through taxes, and then we can save that and travel once they grow up and move out of the house.
Sure.
Fine.
It all makes sense now. It all makes sense.
You guys get it. You guys totally get it.
Genius.
All right. Well, let's kick things off with starting to talk about what we're watching. I know we usually save that for later after what we're playing, but I'm curious to hear about some of the things that you guys have been watching. And I also want to give our reactions to the new trailer for the next Marvel series, She-Hulk Attorney at Law. I want to talk about that. And I know Kyle's not here. Kyle wasn't able to make it. Hopefully next time he can talk about some of his impressions of stuff that we've already chatted about a little bit. But I'm with you, Jeff. I like to kind of get fresh impressions once we finally catch up on stuff we've seen or played. So we'll circle back on some of those things. But before we talk about shows, movies we're watching, let's talk about this new trailer, She-Hulk Attorney at Law. The next Marvel series, I think it premieres in August, was the date that I saw.
17th, yeah.
So, I mean, they continue to do this really interesting combination of Star Wars and Marvel. You almost have something coming out every week. Not quite. Like right now, we've got a little bit of a break before Obi-Wan starts next week, right?
Next week, yeah.
So,
oh wow, yeah.
So a little bit of a break, but not much, right? Because I feel like we just finished up Moon Knight recently. That was just a couple weeks ago, and
then after Obi-Wan is Baymax, the big Hero 6.
I didn't even know they were doing
that.
Show. I didn't even know they were doing that.
They just dropped a trailer. That's how I know, because it just popped up on my feed, and I was like, "Oh, I didn't realize they were doing a show about that."
Right?
And, yeah, it's like the same voice actor, and I don't know if it's a sequel or spinoff, but it's definitely has to do with Baymax.
Yeah, it's is his name Scott Adsit? Does that ring a bell?
Yeah. From 30 Rock. Yeah.
From 30 Rock. Yeah. But this might be the biggest gap between Star Wars and Marvel we've had in a little while. I haven't looked back to see, but once Obi-Wan, I think Obi-Wan's a 6-episode series.
Yeah. Yep.
And then it looks like we'll probably have about 6 weeks, unless there's something else other than like the Baymax show, until She-Hulk. So what did you guys think? You guys both watched the She-Hulk trailer?
Yeah.
It looks, there's a little green right there. Get it?
There's a green emoji. Thank you for that.
It's a sequel to the Shrek movies, right? Is that what this is? Or just
yes.
I don't know.
Shrek Forever Hulk.
I mean, it looks, it'll be fun. Whatever. The CG is definitely not great.
Yeah, let's talk about the elephant in the room. That's what everyone's talking about. Is the CGI, the special effects.
The ugly green elephant.
I'm with you. I was not impressed by the special effects. It's one of those things where it's like I don't need you to be the best special effects ever, but they were noticeable. It was like noticeably weird.
There was some angles where it looked okay, but then I'd say more so than not, it looked off.
It looked more like
it
the
looked
mask.
Too deep fake. It looked way too deep fake. Like
Like
it looked like an amateur deep fake. And
like
that's just the worst.
Especially with Ruffalo, right? Because Ruffalo's Hulk is in this, and
they nailed his look still. Yeah.
And it has there's like dimensions to it. Like it looks like a face. It looks like Ruffalo's face on the Hulk, and it works. And then when you put it side by side with her, it's like
what's her name? Tatiana. What's her last name?
Maslany. She's not Jennifer Walters' character, the She-Hulk. She's not supposed to be as big as Hulk. She's just tall or whatever. So I'm like, why didn't you really couldn't do camera tricks and make it practical, or would that would have been too corny for people to,
or just better CG? I mean, I don't know.
I don't know. It's very weird to me. So I love that actress, by the way. When she landed a Marvel role, I was like fist pumping real hard about that.
I haven't seen Orphan Black. I only saw her in Parks and Rec.
Well, yeah, because she was one of Tom's flings in Parks and Rec, and she's she had great timing. But Orphan Black is what she's known for primarily, because she got to play so many clones of herself, and they all have completely different personalities. Like there's a soccer mom, there's a crazy Russian, there's like a I guess you would call her a normal British one, and it took me like it's kind of a British show. I thought it was a British show, and then I found out it's a Canadian show, and she's Canadian, and I'm like, she's not British. It blew my mind.
Dude, she's great at accents.
Yeah, she's just amazing at the accents, and the Russian accent that she has too. There's like 3 main clones in that show. I do actually recommend that show. It's a good show. But then there's like several more that keep popping up every now and then, and she has to take on a totally different persona. And she's such an impressive actress. So like, I was like, yes, she's in a mainstream role. Oh, and she was in that Jake Gyllenhaal movie about the Boston bomber survivor. Stronger. And she was like the girlfriend or whatever. It's based on a true story. That movie is powerful AF, and she's great in that too. Okay. So like, I was just like, yes, she's in the mainstream thing, and people are gonna know her now. And so I'm excited by that idea. But like, yeah, work on the CG, guys. We got a few months. Yeah.
Well, it's a bummer her being attached to, people are focusing on the bad CG.
Yeah.
As opposed to like sort of like she's a lawyer and
I like the general vibe of what the show is going to be.
About that. Outside of the CG, what do you think about the trailer, what it showed?
Yeah, I like the general vibe of it, like in terms of like the comedy, she's around the age. I think the actress might be a little older than me. I'm not sure, but she's around my age, and she's kind of like
she's Bruce's
career
cousin.
Focused.
Is that what he says?
Yes, she's career focused. So like cousin. So she's like has nobody. She doesn't really have a significant other and stuff. So that's something that I kind of wrestle with personally, like quite often. And so like I don't know. It would be cool to have that represented to where she's kind of like actively pursuing.
Yeah, there's like a dating app,
and then she ends up not going through with it. She's just like, whatever, dating's stupid. Because I want to see that. I want to see somebody in a freaking mainstream Marvel show go be like, or a movie, just be like, dating is dumb anyway. I got my own thing going on. It's fine. I'm happier alone. Somebody have that. Like, I'm so tired of love stories.
but then there's also like the humor of like her carrying that dude, like picking him up off the couch and just like carrying him into the bedroom.
There's been so many great mommy memes from after that, like Lady D level mommy memes.
I was gonna say I got Lady D vibes.
Sure.
Some of that stuff.
Yeah.
I thought the humor looks like it could be pretty fun as long as they keep it fun. I'm down with that. So yeah, I think as long as they really nail that kind of lighthearted, and I'm assuming at times like touching, probably gonna it's gonna have some hopefully a little bit of emotional weight as she's trying to balance out her life as a lawyer, whatever else. But
I'm hoping so obviously fixate on, it's her show, so fixate on her the most, but like Ruffalo as Hulk is fantastic, so I hope there's a good amount of him in there to sort of like bounce off of her and kind of watch her grow. Like,
not to mention Tim Roth is in it.
Tim Roth.
I'm curious
Yep.
what role he's going to play.
Last
time we saw him was in Shang-Chi. So what the hell's going on with that? We got to find out what Wong is doing with him.
He was in some kind of prison, right? In the trailer, looked like he was incarcerated somehow. In some
yeah,
kind of
when Wong opened the portal, it was like he was in that. Yeah,
back into your prison.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. Honestly, my only thought is, the special effects don't distract, I think it's going to be fine.
Because I think she's going to be, and this is the way she is in the comics too, she's going to mostly be She-Hulk.
That's what it looked like in the trailer.
Right.
That's the
And
vibe I
she's
got.
like practicing law in the comics as She-Hulk. So like,
Right.
And going on
I hope
dates
they
and
really
talking
do
to
hope they fix
friends.
it, dude.
And,
Yeah, I really, really hope they not fix it. It's not like horrible.
It's
or
not like Sonic level. It wasn't the first Sonic.
Which
it's
is
not like
there
that.
is that's actually relevant to the news as well.
I saw that.
You
We'll
fix
talk
it.
about that
That's
one.
so
We'll talk about
weird.
that one in a
That's so weird.
second. All right, so looking forward to that. It's one of those ones that I definitely will watch, and I'm just hopeful that it. Honestly, even if let's say the CGI stays the same, if the characters and story are good enough, that'll just kind of be like an asterisk. Like, hey, what a great show. Visuals weren't that impressive, but boy, did I enjoy it. Like, that's fine if they can nail it.
I got ABC like hour-long lawyer comedy show vibes from it.
Oh, good
in
call.
a good way.
Sure.
Like I don't even know if it was a comedy, but Private Practice or something.
Or like Boston Legal.
Boston Legal. That's what I'm
yeah. Wasn't that James Spader?
Yeah, William Shatner too, right?
I think so.
Oh, was it? Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Robert California.
Oh,
all right. Speaking of one of the characters we just mentioned, you know what? I don't want to spoil anything. I had it spoiled for me because it was in an article.
Yeah, it was trending and it was.
It's all over the place right now.
We can talk about it. All right. So tell us about the new Chippendale Rescue Rangers Disney Plus movie.
Yeah. I actually felt like I was the only one excited for it when I saw a trailer because the vibe that I saw, like all the reviews were saying, surprisingly, this is really funny. And I'm like, yeah, the trailers indicated it would be funny. I don't know what you guys thought it was going to be. But it's from the Lonely Island guys. They produced it. Akiva Schaffer, I think. I don't think it was Yorma. I think it was Akiva that directed it, who's kind of directed a lot of their stuff, like MacGruber. No, that might have been Yorma that directed MacGruber. Anyway, those guys just make generally funny things that really land with me, comedy-wise. So this is them going into the family movie world, I guess. Yep. Like this movie's for everybody.
Yeah.
Let's say that there's not going to be anything in there that's
dick in
like,
the box,
oh, I got to explain this to the kids or whatever. There's nothing, at least to me, like that came across like that. But yeah, this is like a modern day Roger Rabbit type thing where Chippendale were very real TV stars in this movie. And then once the TV went off the air, they went their separate ways. One of them tried to do a spinoff, and that caused a rift between them. Double O Dale was the name of the spinoff.
Oh my God.
And I think Dale is Andy Samberg's character, who's always constantly trying to get his way back into Hollywood. So he got a CG surgery, quote unquote, to make himself more appealing to a mainstream current era.
Okay, so that because I did see that on the poster, I was like, I see a human character. I see the old hand-drawn Chip.
Yep.
Chip.
And then I saw
that's John Mulaney.
Really clear and like crisp version of, and I was like, what is going on with this?
That's what I was asking Jeff. I was like, what?
The hand-drawn characters look really good. Like, I mean, even Roger Rabbit, if you watch it now, still looks good with the hand-drawn interacting with the live-action people.
I still like the look of Chippendale and Tailspin. Like I like all those characters.
Yeah, Dale was the only character in this movie to get the CG upgraded, I guess.
And that's because he got surgery.
Yeah, because he's like a vapid, Hollywood star. He takes that type of life very seriously. He thinks more highly of himself than others, do. So yeah, the premise is like it's kind of similar to Roger Rabbit in that cartoon characters keep going missing. And a lot of these are like well known. Some of them are characters from the show, and then there's cameos of like characters that from other movies. I'm not gonna spoil those. We're gonna talk about one that's been in the news because it's been freaking everywhere, and it's been one of the best bits in the movie. But yeah, there are a bunch of cameos from like Disney characters and even characters from like other movies. Like I can't even bring up the studio or ask what studio it was that made the movie without spoiling the cameo.
Bring up the one that we all know about, which is
the one that's been in the news everywhere is Ugly Sonic, and that's his name of the movie.
Dude, as soon as I saw that, I was a little annoyed because I was like, boy, that would have been funny not to know. Yeah. But I also died laughing because they showed the picture of him again. I was like, I forgot how disturbing that was.
But also, like, how did they even? I mean, it's Disney, so I guess like they just threw some money at it. But
I guess it's a Sony thing, isn't it? I thought it was who made that movie?
It's Paramount. Isn't it Paramount?
Paramount? Yeah, you're right.
Is it Paramount? Okay.
Something like it's definitely not Disney.
Let me check.
Disney has
it's not Disney. It's not 20th Century Fox. Like it's.
So it's crazy how they got the rights to that, and there's another cameo in there that's very brief, but I'm like, how'd you get rights to that? I'm
yeah,
pretty sure that was
Paramount
WB, you know?
Dude,
So
I do wonder if, if these companies actually can communicate with each other. Sometimes they can make licensing agreements
yeah.
like,
right.
you know what I mean?
Kind of like think about Roger Rabbit and how they had all these like Bugs Bunny type characters in it. How did they make that arrange? Like you think back on it and you're like, how did movie studios agree to that? And so that's what the feeling I got watching this was like, how did other studios agree to this?
Yeah.
It's crazy. But Ugly Sonic he's in it more than a brief cameo. So he shows up. That's probably why he's talked about the most, because he does have a.
And do they actually call him Sonic? Like he's actually
Ugly Sonic? Yeah, they call him Ugly Sonic.
Ugly Sonic.
Dude, I wish they called him Sonic.
He even has. That's the first time you see him. Is the clip is probably already online. The first time you see him is that Dale is at a one of those expos where like you're meeting fans and signing autographs, and Baloo from Jungle Book is a big hit. He's like, yeah, I'm jazzy. I'm Baloo. I'm gonna play some jazz for you. And Dale is like, oh, I wish I was that famous. And then he's directly across from the Ugly Sonic booth. And they start talking to each other. And he's like, Tim Robinson voices him, by the way. He's got a great show, comedy, in my opinion, a great comedy sketch show. I Think You Should Leave on Netflix. So he voices him in a way that's like there's something kind of off about him, kind of like it was when you first saw Sonic, that first trailer reveal.
Makes sense.
So like the way he's voicing it is just added layers of hilarious. And he's like, people have so many problems with my teeth, and the camera like does like a slow-mo zoom in on his teeth. And Dale's like totally put off by it.
Yeah,
dude, this sounds really good. I gotta watch this movie.
There's a lot of jokes.
It's a
like
movie,
that,
right?
too.
Not a series. It's a movie.
It's a movie, yeah.
Okay.
There's a lot of very meta jokes. Like they talk about maybe we should get a pop star to do a slow version of our theme or something. Now that'd be ridiculous. We should never. And then it cuts to that.
Gosh. Oh my goodness.
So like they do a lot of meta jokes like that, and I love that. J.K. Simmons plays
oh God, who does
rip off Gumby.
The blue, like a blue one. He's like a bluish color instead of green.
Yeah, he's kind of like a dark. He's a different shade of color. That's because one of the main premises of the main premise of the movie is like there's a warehouse that's turning existing cartoon characters into knockoff characters so they can make more money selling bootleg DVDs and stuff like that. So they changed Gumby into like Captain Gummy or something like that, and he's a cop, voiced by J.K. Simmons.
Sure.
It's a really good cast. I can't remember the other ones off the top of my head though.
Hey, new tournament idea: J.K. Simmons roles, because that guy has had some incredible roles.
For real. He also had a show just drop on. He just had a show just drop on Amazon. I haven't started it, but it's like a sci-fi show with him and Sissy Spacek.
I saw that like the banner of that.
Yeah.
I would say though that he's had so many good performances, serious and
Whiplash
funny
is
voice
got to be the best
else.
one. I mean, if you guys see Whiplash, you'll be like, yeah, this is his best performance. There's no other.
My favorite, and it's the writing combined with just his tone is perfect, was Cave Johnson in Portal 2. And you never see him. You never see his character. You only hear his voice. And listening to, I mean, the whole cast of that game is so good. Like, of course, Stephen Merchant playing Wheatley the whole time just cracks me up. And then when you finally start to learn more about Aperture Science and Cave Johnson, who was like the president or CEO or something, like he was like in charge, and the stuff that he says, the recordings you find, dude, so funny. And it's just perfect the way he says it. Anyway, so good. Keeping it in kind of the let's go ahead and call it lovingly the nerd realm. I want to hear about some of the Star Trek stuff. There's a lot of Star Trek content out there.
Yeah, there is. And I don't know. I was just in a couch potato mood, like I have been the last few weeks. And I mean passive couch potato, not gaming. So like I'm just literally sitting there doing nothing.
Sure.
So I was like, what else is on? And then I saw Star Trek Strange New Worlds dropped. Like I think a couple weeks ago they dropped the first few episodes. So I just watched that on a whim. I knew the characters from
Discovery.
Some of the J.J. Abrams. Like I watched all the J.J. Abrams movies.
Okay.
And that's where I started. I didn't really watch the old Trek before.
Sure.
How many Star Trek movies, modern ones, are there? There's three? Chris Pine? Okay.
Yeah, they're working on a fourth one. So I knew the character names. I knew who Pike was. And Pike is the lead of this new series.
Okay.
And it's played by Anson Mount.
Yeah.
Amazing name. I can't get over that name.
Yeah.
Anson Mount.
So of Hell on Wheels fame.
Yes. He's the this is when Pike is captaining the Enterprise. So it's literally like I think it's 10 years right before the original series picks up. So you do have younger Spock, even younger than like Zachary Quinto's version. Like you have a younger Uhura. You have some other newer characters. You have a relative of Khan that's on the ship.
God.
Everybody knows that she's a relative of Khan, though. Like it's or that her people are.
They don't try to like make it a big mysterious reveal. Like,
yeah, no, she's like right away. She's like, my family has issues.
Got it.
And she's like, I can't believe I was accepted here. Blah blah blah. So I mean, it's just like old Trek, and by that I mean it's procedural. It's like Mystery of the Week. It's Crisis of the Week.
Ah, okay.
It's self-contained episodes. There is an overarching story involving Pike that actually stems from something that happened on Discovery, which I haven't watched. I haven't watched all of. I started Discovery this week, and I'm like 5 episodes into the first season, and I'm really enjoying it. Pike doesn't show up until like season 2, I think.
Okay.
But apparently he does eventually start captaining that ship, the Discovery, temporarily, and then something that happens at the end of last season feeds into Strange New Worlds, and he's carrying that with him. But the show explains it to you. It doesn't leave you behind if you haven't seen it.
Is Enterprise the ship in all Star Trek stories?
Not Voyager, because that's called the Voyager.
I didn't know that's why it was called that. Okay.
Enterprise. There's actually a show called Enterprise. Yes.
Right. I know that.
Then of course, I think Next Generation is Enterprise too.
I think so too.
And obviously the original series is Enterprise.
Okay. All right.
I don't know about Deep Space Nine. There's way too freaking much.
Deep
Trek.
Space Nine, dude. This is like all the '90s commercials I remember seeing for all this.
Yeah.
Early
or
2000s.
like, remember what channel was it? It wasn't WB. It was like WGN or something like that. It was like a channel that nobody has anymore.
WGN. There was also the Sci-Fi Channel, which would always air.
Yeah, they had. Yeah.
So I'm
into the new era. I've already kind of resigned to not watching Picard because I think that's for existing Next Generation fans are going to have Easter eggs in that show.
Yeah.
And it's the thing that separates Picard and Discovery from old Trek is that the episodes they're telling a serialized story over the course of an entire season. It's not like we got this crisis, we got to address it, and then that's resolved by the end of the episode. They're continuing a story every episode. So that's a change for a lot of people. And they either hate it or they love that right away. I don't know. I like Discovery so far. But cool. I'm resigning to the fact that I'm just going to watch Discovery and Strange New Worlds and the movies. I stopped. So and I mean the old movies. I think I didn't finish 4. I got all the way up to 4, which is I don't remember the name of it now. But it's something about whales in San Francisco. That's the story.
Is that the one?
Yeah. So I watched the original first movie, which is kind of boring, but it's still pretty. And it's got a cool story. Wrath of Khan, which is just one of the best sci-fi movies ever made, and Search for Spock, which is it's okay. Voyage Home, I think it's called, is the 4th one, and that's where I stopped, and I didn't finish that one. So I'm kind of just starting over and going back through, and I
like that idea. I like the idea of watching the movie
because they're shorter. It's a shorter commitment, so.
And it might give you enough to go with to feel like, all right, exactly. I feel like I get the vibe of the old ones. Without saying, how many Star Trek episodes are there of the original show? Like,
there's 3 seasons, so it's like 30 episodes each season.
I thought it was more than that.
I thought
no, it didn't.
Each season was 30 episodes. Damn.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, they aired a ton of episodes back then. Like they did not compare. Now they show Restraint, which is
it's so interesting because a show like that got so many episodes, but then a show that I imagine was relatively low budget, like Columbo, they would do like 1.5 hour episodes, but they only do like 3 per season. Like
that's something that the UK does. That's interesting.
It would be like it would almost be like a short movie, like a TV movie, right?
Right.
But if you ever watch that show, which I love, Peter Falk, I loved those shows, man. I know they're cheesy and whatever, but I love the detective, and he's kind of bumbling and driving a crap car and wearing the same clothes, and I
know lots of people that love that are my age or around my age.
Dude, I loved his attitude because he's so confident in being funny looking, bumbling, like people kind of make fun of him and he's like, yeah, that's all right. And he'll always like start to walk out and then be like, one more thing. So good. But I was always surprised at how
I did actually watch. I'll admit I went back and watched, I want to say 10 episodes of the original series of Star Trek. And once you accept the corniness of how dated it feels, the stories are so cool, especially even if you consider when it was made.
Yeah.
Like nobody was telling sci-fi stories.
I still remember as a kid seeing an episode where these things went in this guy's ear, and I thought it was the scariest show ever. Some kind of bugs So kind of like
that happened in the
creepy
Wrath of
crawlies.
Khan movie.
Oh, maybe that's what I saw, but I remember seeing a clip of that and being like, "Well, that's the most terrifying thing ever."
Khan puts it in Chekhov's ear to make him more susceptible to commands.
Maybe that's what I remember.
And that was terrifying. That's still like, okay, that's messed up.
I didn't like it.
So the original series was 3 seasons, which seems like a short run, but they still managed to get 79 episodes out of that.
Oh wow!
So, yeah. And then of course, Next Generation was like 7. Every other show went for like way too long.
That's not that big, but see, that's not that big of a commitment. It is a big commitment, but it's not that big. Like if someone were to ever say, "Hey, you should go catch up on the entire series of 24," that's ridiculous. What was that?
Yeah, and they keep bringing it back, and you're like, "Come on,
get out of here! Get out of here!"
Whereas if somebody tells me to go watch The Wire, which many people have many times,
it
doesn't seem that daunting. It's all like 12 episodes a season, 5 seasons. I mean,
and the creator has a new show coming out, which looks great.
I've actually been watching it. We Own the City. It's great. It's
also
about. I think they got a couple episodes left.
It's Baltimore
cops. About Baltimore cops. Yes, dude can't get enough of that city
and corruption and that kind of stuff. Yeah,
it's really good. It's a little more blatant in terms of what it's addressing. So it might be a little too on the nose for some people. But some cops are built like that. I mean, so I don't know,
The Wire was fascinating, and even like small roles with characters like Idris Elba. I mean, he was amazing, and he had a small role in there too. But anyway.
that was a big deal for him. That role. That was kind of a career launcher.
Also, he's a musician. Have you heard him do like his reggae rap stuff?
DJ.
Idris Elba.
He's featured in a couple different artists' songs, and I was like, featuring Idris Elba. So I clicked on it, and he actually. I mean, of course, he has a very deep voice reggae rap style, and I was like, listen, this isn't my style of music, but I freaking love this guy. Like watching him dance around, do his rap thing, I'm like, this guy can do anything.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of like just somebody you're not expecting to do music or anything, Stanley Hudson from The Office, that actor, he has he like made like a music video and like sings like I forget if he raps or sings. Just look it up. Just look up like Stanley Hut or whatever the actor's name is.
So was that
like
picture
Leslie?
Of him
Leslie something.
When he talks about being in a band, was that really a picture of him from back in the day?
It might have been.
I don't know, but it's him. It's him.
I do remember. This is me from when I was.
Yeah.
But like it's a, I guess newer, like in his older age, not when he was younger.
Yeah. Good for him.
It's very strange. It's a very strange song.
Speaking of HBO. I watched. My wife and I are actually on the last episode of The Way Down. So if you
I've heard of this. I think
if you like HBO docs, which I've talked about before, I do recommend this one. It's very it's about this cult, and it starts as a weight loss kind of ministry program where it's all about like if you love God, you'll be thin type of a weird ministry thing. That's like whatever. This is dumb.
It's that easy.
But it goes from being a dumb premise of a book she's trying to sell and a program she's trying to get churches to buy that I'm like I would normally just roll my eyes at. And as you watch it, it becomes quite nefarious quite quickly. And but it's fascinating. So
it sounds like Nixium, because Nixium started as something relatively wholesome about getting control back in your life. That was especially appealing to women. And then immediately he was like, I'm going to start doing all these women. And then it turned into like a whole
this becomes very similar. It's like you could tell she really believes it and wants to help people at the beginning when they show old clips of it. Like she actually wants to help people get healthy physically, and she's also a very staunch believer, and so she mixes those two things together. I think her intentions are good, even though I cringe at how cheesy it all is. But boy, once she starts getting money and power, you can see it snowballing, and you can see her hair start to grow, and you can see her makeup start to get worse. It's just like,
it's like
she goes,
thing.
One of the ladies who they interview who left the church, they're interviewing her, and she goes, she went from looking like an early 90s mom to a strung out hooker. And like,
I have heard of this, and I do like HBO. HBO generally does really well with
it's right from the jump.
Docuseries.
Right from the jump. If you start the first episode, be like, whoa, I got to see what happens here, because it's a very intriguing opening.
There's I think tonight there's a George Carlin documentary that Judd Apatow co-directed that should be dropping.
Interesting.
Ooh, I'll check that out.
I'm definitely gonna watch that. Yeah.
And I know you guys. I think both of you watched the new Jackass 4.5, right?
I definitely did.
I mean, they should have just called this. They should have just called this Jackass dick and ball mutilation.
Yes!
Is what they should have called it. I've never seen more penises in an hour and a half in my entire life. Like
that was only an hour and a half too. It felt like I was like, I'm gonna be here forever.
Yeah.
And they kept. Okay, so there's one with the
Netflix is like, we've lost subscribers. Let's put it all out there.
By the way, that's a
What the
Paramount
dick's in there?
movie, so I find it very interesting that Netflix secured the 4.5. That's very interesting to me.
Yeah.
Must have been an agreement before
So is this
Paramount.
not
Plus
is this not forever? Because like
This
for
is
instance,
a side.
the-
This is like a side thing from like this
Okay.
is like deleted sketches and bits, and as well as behind the scenes interviews.
okay, because what I used on the thumbnail, I was like, that didn't happen in this movie. So like, when did that happen? And when I was looking for Jackass images, I was seeing stuff like
Oh,
that
got
wasn't
it.
in this movie.
I think
so,
that was in Forever.
okay.
So this one has like, god dang, this one has like there's a sequence where the bigger dude is wearing like a bag, like a really, or it's not really a bag. It's like a he's just wrapped in like saran wrap or something. But within that saran wrap is like chunk like
Oh
sushi.
yeah. Oh god. Oh,
And
my
he's all sweaty, and the guys from the crew are like eating the sushi out of his sweaty saran wrap.
Gross.
And Steve-O goes the extra mile and does
Yeah.
some extra gross crap,
Yeah.
and I'm like, like I'm like, I
But
could
they're
barely
all
stomach
throwing up
that
pretty
bit.
much. All
Oh,
of them
yeah,
are
all
they're
of
all
them.
throwing up.
Gross.
Even
And-
Chris Pontius, who can drink horse stuff, and he's like, all right,
That's
That's
so
fine.
messed up. That is
And then,
so
and
messed
then,
up.
and then that dude sends the like, what is it, the director or whatever, like a picture 2 days later of some sashimi that he found in some crevice in his body. 2 days later, Tim, like just like dry, like oh my, it was like just oh my god, it was so
definitely.
bad.
If I do recommend Jackass Forever first because it's actually, believe it or not, it's tamer. There's still some gross stuff in
That's
it, but it is
surprising.
tamer.
I'm not gonna watch either of these movies.
Okay,
even a
I don't
little
blame you.
bit.
I don't blame you because they do more gross out stuff each movie, so I get it. It makes
Yeah.
sense.
I have no
Um,
interest.
but
Like,
for
I
You don't want to
one-
see a bunch of dongs?
I understand, and I sometimes chuckle at the description of these idiots doing idiotic things, but like that's never appealed to me. Like even when the show was so popular back in
Yeah.
the day, it's just like
I think this is actually the first like Jackass movie I've seen it in its entirety. I've seen clips of like from all the other. I've never watched any of them front to back. So
Oh wow, that's interesting.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
just
you just couldn't
was
put
the
it down.
Right age
yes.
when it started airing on MTV, I was the right age, and I
Okay.
stuck
Sure.
with it when the movies came out. Like I was
Sure.
there day one. You know,
I was the
I've been
right
watching it
target age and
forever.
audience. For some reason, it just didn't click for me. I remember, like, it's one of the things that when we'd go, all my buddies, we watching things like wrestling or whatever else together. Sometimes I'd flip over to Jackass if that was on or rerun was on, and
Sure.
they'd all be laughing. And I remember kind of being like, I see why it's kind of it just never. I don't know why, never clicked with me.
Some
And
of
so-
it is actually genuinely like creative and like funny because they're hurting
Yes.
themselves, but it's not that bad that they're hurting. But like it's actually funny and unique. And what they're doing.
creative. Yes, they're
Yeah.
very, very creative.
Like there's the one where where what was it? They were going off of the ramp in the water and they had sort of like the like packs on their back, Jeff.
Yeah.
They
Mhm.
were sort of like propelling themselves. Like that one was kind of fun. Like I would probably even just try that because that just seemed like I wouldn't hurt myself that bad. I mean, I'd hurt myself a little bit, but like the dude taking the bowling ball to the nads, like oh my,
From a
Jesus
professional
Christ.
bowler, no less.
Yeah.
It's not even like an
Yeah.
amateur. It's like it's somebody that won awards and trophies.
With like
and...
the biggest bowling ball that what was it 16 what did she say, like 16-inch bowling ball or whatever, like
Yeah.
twice.
That's so
and
stupid.
it kept hitting him because it was Aaron, right? It was the guy they always put through all the hard, or
Yeah,
Dave.
he
I'm
seems to
Dave.
get hit in the junk the most. Like
Yeah, it's the guy they put through all the worst stuff. And they kept hitting him in the leg and kind of missing, so he's still getting a full speed ball right into the thigh, even if it's missing his gonads. Like it's still
Oh my god.
and
giving
something
him so
tore,
much
something
damage.
tore because there was some blood there. Like
yeah.
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness,
there's something
like-
in Jackass Forever that resembles that moment. That's like I think it's a pogo stick. Just imagine a pogo
oh,
stick.
it showed the poker stick in this one too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
How?
Yep.
How do
Yep.
you
Yep.
just take that and you're
All right, super
like-
hard pass on this
Yeah.
whole situation.
So it's gonna be
Get it.
on the Academy Award or the
Oh my gosh.
the Emmys, or it's gonna be on one of those, right?
Yeah,
So-
it's gonna win. They're gonna win all the awards, obviously.
But the dad, what was it? Hit the black. So there's some new guys on this,
Mhm.
which obviously I'm guessing they were in Forever as well. And
They were. Yeah.
the black dude, what's his dad's name? Like Black Shark or something like that.
Yes, I think that's right. Yeah, because he was in prison for a bit, and ever since he got out, he's kind of been with the Jackass guys.
Yeah,
and
so
his
this-
son. Yeah.
So this dude's he says he's like he's been shot 9 times, like he's been through some stuff, and he is afraid of just the like most like birds. He just can't handle birds. and fly, like they flew to Hawaii once, and he was like crying the whole time, like they were busting his balls because he was crying. So one of the last bits is they do skydiving. I'm not going to get into too much specifics because there is a couple like twists there, but yeah, they get him to do some skydiving, and they throw in some extra wrenches in there to like, you know, kind of make them think things are happening, and it's just like, that's just, I can't.
They did the bit that they did with him that was was kind of funny from Forever was they had like these, like, I don't know what you call them, free diving helmets that were on him, and I think it was his son on the other end
with
the tube. And there's a tarantula in the middle that they put in, and the guys are just blowing, trying to get the tarantula to go to the other guy.
Oh my god!
And it ends up coming towards him, and he just like immediately like passes out while he's grabbing onto somebody. Oh my god!
Dear Lord!
He just hates like everything that's not in the hood, quote unquote. So his son says, you know, like he's everything. He's just afraid of it.
The bear.
I'm definitely not watching that. Chippendale, yes.
Chippendale.
I'm on board with She-Hulk.
And then you can watch Jackass 4.5 with the family. It's perfect.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to try some Star Trek, and then Jackass to top it all off.
I would say, do you watch Star Trek? Have you watched it at all, or
just like similar to what you said? Like
passively,
I tried
like me, yeah.
The movies, and I think I've seen one of the old movies and part of one of the other old movies. I've seen all the new movies with Chris Pine, although I don't remember them super well. Maybe it's worth a rewatch.
I think they are. Yeah,
I've always like so many reruns across all the Star Trek stuff. I feel like I've seen.
By the way, UPN was the channel I was thinking of. It was
UPN, good.
Yeah, UPN is where like Voyager used to air and stuff like that.
So I know I've seen full episodes at various times. I don't know if it was Deep Space Nine or Next Generation.
In that case, Strange New Worlds might be the best place to start because it picks up where Discovery left off, where Pike is like on leave because of something that happened in the last mission. And everybody's like around him going, what happened on that last mission? And then he explains it. The show reveals it. And I'm like, oh, cool. Thank God you didn't make me watch the other show for that. You know, like, so they kind of, you know, they welcome you into the show. They're welcoming.
I do like Anson Mount, and he's
so good in the role, dude.
I think he's a good actor, but he also has like strong screen presence. So like he kind of just commands the room, which is why he's a good cast for a captain. And he was great in Hell on Wheels, and I think he would have been perfect for Joel on Last of Us, but I digress. And I know, listen, I'm biased because I saw him in Hell on Wheels, and I immediately thought, hey, he looks like Joel from The Last of Us. So I already made that connection, but whatever.
God, I love that show. Hell on Wheels.
Hell on Wheels was great. Commons actually. I remember seeing that he was in it, and I was like, I don't think I've seen him be good in a movie or in a show or whatever.
Right.
He was pretty good in that show.
Yeah, he had a great arc.
Smoke. Have you ever seen the movie?
The Swede is such a piece of garbage. Like,
yes.
Every time I see that actor show up, I'm like, that freaking guy.
Yeah, the Swede. That's right. Yep.
Oh man.
That's a good show. I do like that one. If you like westerns and kind of like the wild frontier type of stuff.
Yeah, and it's like post Civil War, so people are kind of still. Like, which side were you on? You know, like they're all kind of side-eyeing each other.
Speaking of westerns, I want to talk about some Yellowstone news because I haven't seen that show. That's a show I need to watch. But anything else that you guys have been watching you want to talk about before we move into headlines?
Go watch. I think this is nerdy enough. Go watch Love, Death, and Robots if you guys like the first. Anybody listening?
Never seen.
Like the first two seasons. It's an anthology sci-fi show. It's all animated, but every episode is a totally different story and different style of animation.
Oh, I didn't know that.
You'll get some that's like, I mean, you might even get an anime in there. I'm just throwing it out there. But you'll get some that's like a video game cutscene type animation, but better because they perfected it for the show. Right. And you'll get some.
You guys have talked about this show before, right?
I think so. We might have.
Well, this is season 3, right?
This is season 3, so we might have talked about it season 2 or something.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's really, really cool and clever. Clever stories too. Like there's one that's. And they're all like 10, 15-minute shorts. So it's like MTV liquid television era type stuff, which is just...
It's like those Star Wars shorts.
The Star Wars shorts.
Yeah, it's like Visions. So like there's one episode that had me dying laughing. It's called, the episode's called Night of the Mini Dead. And it's all like a zombie apocalypse being told from like a Micro Machine perspective. And everybody's voices are all like really high pitched and everything's going super fast. Like, you know, before like people have sex in a cemetery and that's what causes a zombie apocalypse. And
Oh my
it's
gosh,
so
that's amazing.
ridiculous. Like,
All
and
right.
it's like a 10-minute short, but they do so much in that time to like, they're like, we got to nuke the place, and then when the camera zooms out. And it shows the nuke going off, and it's just like a fart noise. It zooms out from the planet. It's like,
Oh man, Micro Machine. Even just saying Micro Machines just
Yeah,
brought back a ton of
yeah.
nostalgic
Micro
feelings.
Machine.
it was
I
really
love
clever.
Micro
It's like, yeah, bitch, come get some. And it's
Jeez.
That's awesome.
so
Well,
there's some comedy and some that's very heavy, heavier.
Okay.
So
Well,
yeah, it's really good.
Speaking of shows that I do want to get to, Yellowstone is one of those, and it's one of those
Same,
ones that I
same.
think you said this in the chat, Jeff, where it's like, all right, I guess I need to watch this show and its prequel, and now it will be like the sequel to the prequel, but not the real show. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah,
that's what this one's gonna
yeah.
be. So they've announced 1932. Okay, let me just back up. Yellowstone is a show starring Kevin Costner. It's like a modern day Western. Get off my land. I don't know the whole story, but that's kind of the vibe.
No,
I
that's
get.
it is. It's very much like
That's
get
the
off my
vibe I get,
yard
yeah.
type. Yeah.
And I've heard it's great. I do need to watch it. The cast looks great, and I need to watch it. And then they made, is it
1883.
1883 is the other show, which apparently is also very good.
It's a Wild West
and it takes
Gold
that
Rush type show.
takes
Yeah.
that family line back. I guess it's like the original family and how they got that land and all that stuff. That's what I assume from what I've heard. And now it's 1932. It's another story of another generation of, I assume, that same family. And they cast Harrison Ford and Helen Mirren, or at least they're attached to it. That's what the
That's insane. That script has to be amazing.
I mean,
Has to be.
when has Harrison Ford done TV?
That's a great question.
What was that little Star Wars holiday special that he did?
That might have been it.
Like Cocaine Field Holidays.
Dude, I
just need him. Oh
I imagine Helen Mirren might have done some British drama shows, possibly. I don't know her whole line of work, but I'm a bigger fan of Harrison Ford, and I could not I was like, is this his first TV show? That's might be
a very long time.
Could be.
That script has to be. I mean, I keep going back to the script because that writer is pretty famous in the Hollywood circuit. Like he was, before Yellowstone was even produced, he put his foot down with the studio. And I know that some people in Hollywood can't get away with this, but he put his foot down with the studio and said, "You're going to let me write this my way, or you're not getting the shows." And they said, "All right." They said, "All right, you make some compelling arguments." And so he got to write Yellowstone, 1883, 1932. It's all his baby, And he's done Sicario and Hell or High Water and Wind River. Like, he's done a ton of great movies.
And I should clarify, they're not attached. Like, they're starring it. It's in production now because it's set to launch in December. So
wow. TV time turn around quick, man. They do turn around pretty fast.
Harrison Ford might be just going to TV now because I was trying to look up to see if it was like a list of shows he's been on, and he's going to be on something on Apple TV Plus.
Well, dude, that's where the audience
Apple TV
is
Plus
now.
gets everybody. Jeez,
that's where the audience is now. That makes sense.
Ted Lasso duo. It says Jason Segel. It's something called Shrinking.
Okay.
So, interesting.
Yeah. So he's going to be involved.
Ted Lasso
in that.
duo. Does it say Bill Lawrence is involved in that? He's like the creator of Scrubs and Ted
Bill
Lasso.
Bill Lawrence and.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
All right, I'm game. I'm game for that.
Shrinking.
Give me that show.
All right. Harrison Ford getting into TV.
Good for him. I wonder if Apple TV Plus was like his door into the streaming world and getting that type of paycheck and being like, all right, well, it pays, so.
Yeah.
My horrible
Harrison Ford,
white man Harrison Ford. Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of what he is, though.
I guess.
Speaking of actors, Norman Reedus was recently claimed that Death Stranding 2 is in early development. He already talked about how we're working on the sequel. And it's like, I don't think you were supposed to say that, but I mean, this game was, as far as I remember, a pretty big hit, both critically and commercially. Is that fair to say?
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I think the director's cut even sold well, like on PC
it did
and stuff
on
like
the
that,
PC.
so.
Yeah, I think that did pretty well.
So I mean, I don't think it was one of those like crazy successes that's like, oh my god, like Elden Ring is selling crazy numbers. I don't think it was like that, but I think it did really well and it made them good money. So
for that year, yeah.
For what it is, like how unique of a game it is, and not a lot of combat and just it being wacky, it did pretty well.
I think it's fair to say that a sequel would do even better because I think this game has had a long life and people have, like myself, discovered it after the fact, or finally came around to it after the fact, and so I could see that being a hit, but we'll see. I think it's safe to say it's being worked on though, it just hasn't been officially announced yet.
Kojima's gonna beat the shit out of Rio.
He's gonna be like, "Hey, Higashimasu." I don't.
There it is again.
So wait, what does that mean, Jeff? What is
Yes. I don't remember what Higashimasu means, but I learned it from before, and it's just stuck with me.
How do you say I'm gonna beat your Japanese? That's what he's gonna tell him.
Yeah, say "get over here," Norman Reedus in Japanese.
Ich weiß nicht.
Okay.
Ich weiß nicht.
All right, thank you.
That sounded German. I was gonna say that sounded.
That did not sound
German.
Japanese. He's just like, if you speak any of the Axis languages from World War II, they all it count. Next, here comes Italian.
There is a question of why am I learning German and Japanese?
Yeah, there is that.
Lost.
There is
What
that.
am I doing here?
Marvel's Midnight Suns has been rated in South Korea, and I feel like these types of leaks tend to bode well for upcoming release date. So this game could be, hopefully, it'd be a good summer game, I think, because Marvel Midnight Suns is one of those games that is not at the very top of my like hype list or the games that I can't wait for, but I am interested in it.
Obviously. I would definitely play that. Yeah.
Yeah, so it could be a really great summer release. We've talked about how there's not a ton of AAA must-play games, and so this is a great time for games like this. And some of the stuff Nintendo's going to be putting out this summer. It's a great time for those kind of games to arrive. So we'll see. We'll see if that one gets an official date or not. Last week we did a quiz about canceled games, and this is one I didn't know was being worked on. That's Scarface 2. So I remember the Scarface game, which was I wrote it down. Let me see if I have it.
I don't think I ever played it because it came out when I hadn't seen it yet.
2006 is when the Scarface game came out. And, you know, it was a little bit like kind of Grand Theft Auto in some ways, kind of like Mafia in some ways, kind of like the Godfather game, which, by the way, I loved the Godfather game as well.
Yeah, I played that.
That game was pretty fun. And Scarface game was okay. I actually got pretty decent reviews back in the day, you know, kind of like high 7s, low 8s, I think, across the board.
Swimming in 7?
A little bit above that, right? It was but not quite an 8 either. So anyway, but there's some screenshots that have been released by former employees of Radical Entertainment showing off the Las Vegas Strip, the surrounding Nevada desert. The sequel was planned for 2009, 2010, but that did not end up happening. I think Radical Entertainment ended up providing support for Destiny. Is kind of where they shifted over.
That was their Destiny.
Yes.
Well done.
Well. Does the game end the way the movie ends? Because how do you make a sequel? Like,
so I'm not sure what the
His
story
son
was going to
does
be.
a lot of cocaine.
They did talk about how you reprise the role of Tony Montana. So I'm not sure what that means. If it's
Tony Montana
prequel or hey, he's not really. He survived, you know, but I don't know how.
I'm a white guy.
You know what it is?
Cuban. How's it going?
He finds the Dragon Balls. Some of his crew finds the Dragon Balls and
Don't insert your horrible anime into this stuff. I'm so sick of this.
Speaking of which, rewatching Dragon Ball Super almost.
I'm sorry
again. So
my condolences.
It's very good
on Crunchyroll.
On Funimation, actually.
Funimation. Got it.
Funimation. How's your dog Goku doing, by the way, Jeff?
Oh yeah, Goku.
My dog Goku.
Major anime fan over there, folks. Yep. So the Dying Light studio Techland, I think they've made a couple of really solid open world games, and now they're shifting their focus to what they say is going to be a fantasy action RPG.
Sweet.
And I'm interested in this. So far the team they're hiring looks like up to 70 or maybe just under 70 open positions for this game, a wide variety of game development positions, but here's what caught my attention outside of the genre, which catches my attention. And Techland, I think, makes some pretty solid games. We talked about Dying Light 1 and 2. They're not bad games. They just that genre and the first-person perspective didn't quite click with me, even though I did enjoy them and I acknowledge them as fun. But here's the team responsible for this new IP: a number of former CD Projekt Red staff, including their open world director from Cyberpunk, Witcher 3. A narrative director from The Witcher 2 and Witcher 3, and the narrative lead from Witcher 2 and Witcher 3.
Oh, wow.
Whoa.
So they all just migrated over there?
So they essentially just hired those folks away from CD Projekt Red, it sounds like. Also, the creative director from Prince of Persia, Sands of Time, and Mad Max, and the lead game designer from Deathloop, and the lead animator from Horizon Zero Dawn.
Oh, all right.
So,
wow.
This is not a crew who doesn't know what they're doing. So
this feels like a super developer, super team or something.
I hope they don't butt heads. There's a lot of
totally different ideas in there. Yep.
Yeah.
But I'm excited to see what this is. I'm assuming maybe a reveal in 2023. We might see some kind of teaser trailer for whatever this is. Might be later, but this is cool that that's being worked on, and it's cool that Techland is venturing outside of their Dying Light IP, which I know.
I mean,
that's where they made their money. But
I'm all about a fantasy setting, so
yeah,
I'm all for that. So.
Absolutely. Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown, which is a little bit of a mouthy title. I'm not a big fan of that title, but Test Drive I remember from way back in the day, on PC and stuff like that. But this game was supposed to come out sometime in 2022. I think they announced it last year, if I remember right. And now they're saying it's not going to come until next year, 2023. And it is not going to have any last gen versions, so no PS4, Xbox One.
All right, that's fair.
So do it. I think do that with all the games.
Yep.
Time to pull
I'm
the
in
trigger.
agreement on that. Apologies to everybody that is poor or whatever. I don't know what their excuse is.
We talked about this last week. It's like if you really wanted one of these, you have one. If you really, really wanted one.
Yeah.
Then you.
I mean, I know there's some extenuating circumstances, whatever, blah blah blah. But for real though, I mean, if you were dead set on having one.
Yes.
If
it's so important to you that you have one and you want the new games, you got to buy the new games when they come out. You have one of the new systems. You just do. And
exactly. Especially if you already saved up. If you already saved up for it, have that money put aside, and you still don't have one. What are you doing?
Yeah.
You just subscribe to one of those Twitter people.
Yes.
That alerts you, and you'll get in there. I mean, you right away. Like, I mean, not right away, but like you have a better shot.
Because are the scalpers still getting in there and taking them? Like, is that still a thing? Like,
they are, but the prices are steadily on the decline. Like the payoff for people who are buying and reselling right away is actually getting quite low at this point.
Right.
So. Yeah, it's because it's in not as much of demand, I would imagine.
Yep, and then you got to shipping and all that stuff. So anyway, there you go. Microsoft has really the only piece of news that applies to them also applies to Nintendo that I could find this week, and that is that Fall Guys is finally coming to their consoles, and it's going to be free to play across all platforms on June 21st, and that's going to come to Switch. And
I didn't realize
Xbox
it was not.
consoles.
Did not realize it was not on.
I think it was a $20 game on the PlayStation 4 and PC. I think it was 20, might have been 30, and it was announced like, hey, it's coming to other consoles. They just kind of never gave any more details around that. And
I think it was actually even a PlayStation Plus game at launch. I could be wrong.
That sounds right.
I think
it might have been.
And then it went to the $20. Yeah.
And it'll be on. Oh, maybe it's not on PC. Maybe it was just PS4, and now it's coming to Epic Game Store, Switch, and Xbox. I think that's what it is.
Sweet.
On June 21st.
That game is really fun with a party, of course. But really
it is. I love like the silly, wacky floppiness of all of it.
It's so dumb.
Yeah. The physics. Yeah.
This is such a weird announcement, but I had to bring it up. Like, so Nintendo has a new investor now, and that is what it's called this Public Investment Fund. It's a sovereign wealth fund out of Saudi Arabia, and they basically it's chaired by the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman.
Sure.
And of course it is. You guys knew this. But they made this purchase for investment purposes, and now they own 5.01% of Nintendo. They have that stake in Nintendo now.
The government is very involved in stuff like this and bringing sports over there and stuff like that. Like they have a whole fund for bring WWE over here. They have a whole fund for that. It's kind of crazy.
And that makes them the 5th largest Nintendo shareholder. So they're not like
Lord.
But that's pretty big.
They should be like not a shareholder, but whatever. Money talks, I guess. But
so the next Mario game, he's not gonna be a plumber. He'll be an oil tycoon sitting in a palace in the Middle East.
His head gets chopped off in the middle of the game.
Oh jeez, this is getting real racist real fast.
Racist?
You know what's funny is
bro?
The only the last time. As soon as I hear Saudi Arabia, I think of that movie, The Kingdom, which I love that movie with.
Dude, that movie is intense.
With Jason Bateman and Jamie Foxx and Jennifer Garner, I love that movie.
That's a fantastic. Yeah, it's just super tense and like just.
But it does a great job of also showing the Saudi police officer.
Right. Yep.
And like, it's not just like here are the Americans are the heroes. It's not that at all. Like, it does a really good job of showing both sides, and then
you care about that dude, like totally
big time. And so, man, I loved, and that final scene is so intense.
That's why House of Ashes is a good game.
Nope.
Because it is like beginning of Iraq War, and you're one of the characters you play is an Iraqi soldier.
There you go.
Yeah.
There's an
And
agenda.
I love stories like that.
Yeah, I thought
no,
the way
I
they
was,
did
I
that
was
was great.
referring to well, I guess they chopped his body into pieces. I was referring to that American journalist they totally murdered. The Saudi Arabian
Oh yeah,
government.
no, I got you. Yeah, I got you.
That's all I
No, they're
was
not great, but there's moments in
Not
that,
great.
movie. There's moments in that movie, The Kingdom, where they go visit the prince at like his mansion, and he's like holding a hawk or something. It's like and they can't look at him in the eye, or there's all kinds of rules they have around it that are very tense. And I'm pretty sure Jeremy Piven plays a character in it. I think he's over there as like an ambassador or some kind of an assistant to the ambassador.
Jeremy Piven.
I haven't heard that name in ages, bro. Wow.
You know what I'm talking about? The guy from Entourage, like fast talk.
Ari Gold. Yeah.
Entourage. Yeah.
Entourage.
And Kyle Chandler plays a small role in it too. I mean, I love
Kyle Chandler, man. Put him in more stuff. That dude is great. He's solid in every role.
He's so
smoking aces.
He was so good as Jason Bateman's brother.
Yeah, Kingdom.
In Game Night. He was so good.
Hey, by the way, speaking of Kyle Chandler real quick, I know we're off of stuff we watched, but is Bloodline worth the time? I've been curious about that show.
The first season is amazing.
Okay.
The second season not as amazing at all.
Okay. That's too bad.
And then I heard yes. And then I heard the third season was like actually bad. Like bad.
Oh, that's a bummer.
And I heard how it ended and I was like, "Oh, well then I'm not going to watch this show."
Yeah, that's a bummer. That's a bummer.
Yeah.
But I do like Kyle Chandler. Hey, listen, I still like, and I know that it is essentially a soap opera set in Texas. I know, but Friday Night Lights is so entertaining. I still love that show. And
I've heard so many good things about that show, and
I love it.
That's another one that, like The Wire, that I gotta sit down and actually like watch.
That Friday Night Lights is a show that has a super strong first season. Second season was interrupted by the writer's strike, and it was going some weird direction of storyline. That's where it feels very soap opera-y, like who's sleeping with who, and then who was. There was an accidental murder that they try to cover up. It gets a little too like out there.
Sounds like One Tree Hill nonsense.
But they get back on track, and the third, fourth, and fifth seasons all very much are like small town. He's just trying to get by and coach his team, but all this drama keeps popping up around him, and like him and his wife trying to fight through it. Like I
love that type of stuff.
I love it. I thought it was really, really good. And that's the first time that I saw Michael B. Jordan in something. He's in seasons 4 and 5.
Yeah.
Man.
Well, he's in The Wire too. He was in like 10 or something in The Wire. That's where that's where I feel like that's where I've seen him at his youngest.
He has a pretty important role in that movie, in that show. All right. Some PlayStation classics we know are coming to PS Plus, and specifically Siphon Filter, used as the example here, are going to have trophy support, which I think is really cool. That they're going to add that.
I get to play that for the first time. That's cool.
That's right.
And so I think it gives you, outside of nostalgia, it gives you incentive to try out some of these and maybe even play them through.
I don't know if you saw, they had announced earlier too, like some of the I don't know if all of them or some of them are going to have like extra features, like being able to rewind or like
I didn't see this,
or like
save state.
Save states, because some of the games had like kind of like bad spacing as far as like,
dude, do you remember the PlayStation? You had to buy a memory card to save games.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hey, you got to buy hard drives now if you want.
You had
more
that
space.
for N64 too and PS2, and
it's true.
It's
true.
It was that era.
Rumble packs. Remember when Rumble had to you had to buy it separately?
Yes.
Rumble.
Well, listen, we can say what we want about Nintendo, but they introduced the idea of the analog stick, the Rumble pack, like this idea that now are just kind of a given in controllers and in experiences.
But now it's like a thing people brag about is like the DualShock. Yeah.
Remember the expansion pack on the N64?
Expansion pack,
which was always required at a certain point. Like it's like if you don't have
I think it was after Majora's Mask.
I think the idea was to do more with it, but it was almost kind of like the new Nintendo 3DS, where they didn't end up doing a ton with it. I don't think. I could be wrong.
I remember it being required for a lot of titles later on in the N64 run.
I think it came with Majora's Mask, because I specifically remember it being tied to Majora's Mask. That's what my memory is telling.
I remember having to buy it separately for a couple of titles that I was like, come on, man, I just want to play this game and whatever.
Yeah.
So they're also the ones who introduced like the mid console generation upgrade. Idiots. Jerks. It's their fault. So PlayStation Plus, as we're getting closer and closer to launch here in about 3 weeks, I think. We're getting a lot more news about it. In addition to the trophies for classic games, we're getting a list and like small chunks. We're finally hearing about some of the games that are coming out, and also Ubisoft Plus, which we've we didn't talk about this on the show, but I did read a while back that they're planning on bringing it to consoles. We just didn't know how and when. If you're not familiar, Ubisoft Plus is their subscription service where you can have access to essentially their whole catalog, including a lot of times day and date new releases. Like that's how I played Assassin's Creed Valhalla on my PC, as I subscribed to that for a couple months. Anyway, so that is coming to consoles, which I think is very cool. I think that's a good service if you like their games. But in addition to that, we don't know if that's going to be included with the PS Plus or Game Pass subscriptions. We don't know how they're going to do Ubisoft Plus. But we do know they're going to be adding Ubisoft Plus Classics to the PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium subscription. So if you subscribe there, you'll have access to a good chunk of the Ubisoft back catalog, including some more recent games like AC Valhalla. You'll have access to Assassin's Creed Valhalla, The Crew 2, Child of Light, Far Cry 3 and 4. Let's see, both both South Park games.
Nice.
Division, not Division 2.
Awesome. Those South Park games, bro.
A couple of the Trials
Just
games.
the first Division?
Just the first Division, which is strange.
That is dumb.
Watch Dogs, just the first Watch Dogs, also kind of strange. But their idea is that's 27 games they have listed. Their idea is to get up to 50 by the end of the year. They want there to be Ubisoft Plus Classics as part of the PlayStation subscription service. We haven't heard anything if they're going to do that with Microsoft yet. I wouldn't be surprised if they did, unless part of their deal with Sony is don't do this with Microsoft, because I guess Game Pass has the connection with the EA Play where you can bunch of EA games, and so maybe Ubisoft will back Sony. I'm not sure how that will work, but there'll be a good amount of stuff to play if you've got that new PlayStation Plus subscription, which I did have a chance to. I didn't stack a ton. I just did the one full year, and I'll get it at a much cheaper price because I did that.
Yeah, they said that they're gonna try to make it as simple as possible, not convoluted. So there's gonna be sort of like for example, so I bought a couple extra years of PlayStation Plus, so I have like basically 3 years stacked of PlayStation Plus. So I think they're essentially gonna allow you to be able to convert that in sort of like a seamless way. If I want to get the highest tier, like kind of have the math done for you.
So I had PS Plus, which actually expires like 2 days before they launch this new one. So I'm just gonna let it expire, and then I'll because I subscribed to PlayStation Now for a year,
right,
and that's gonna transfer over to their highest level of subscription service. So I didn't want to go beyond that because I was like, what if I get it and I'm like, I don't use this, I don't care about it. So I knew that I'd be paying more if I end up loving it and want to keep it. So, but we'll see what happens. I just don't want them to make their games worse if they do day and date for new games. That'd be horrible if they had to make their games worse.
Well, that's very noble of you, Tim. Yeah,
I know.
It's very noble.
All right, let's wrap up with stuff that we're playing. I've actually got a few games I wanted to talk about before we do that. I do want to hear. And Dan, I didn't see anything on here that you're playing. So what are you playing? I'm
just still kind of plugging away at Euden Chronicle Rising.
Yeah, what are your updated thoughts on that game?
So I just got to I think you guys one of you mentioned the snowy area.
Yep.
I just got there. So now I do finally have the third character. So play around there with sort of the bouncing back and forth between all the characters. I got all the stamps
too. 3 total, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
So I did clear one whole like sheet of stamps. So I think you can do it extra like sort of extra combo. So that's pretty cool.
Which with the 3 characters, all of a sudden it makes it real fast and seamless. That's cool.
Right. And yeah, because you stack it and then it does like a lot of like it does critical. You get a lot of critical damage.
And it kind of slows everything down. Like whatever enemies are doing, they kind of all slow down, which is cool.
Yeah, exactly. So it gives you kind of a second to think too and try to like maybe back away if you have to. Yeah, I mean it's fun. It's definitely I mean, as far as like the just trudging through side quests, just kind of typical RPG stuff, it's like, oh well, these are kind of mindless. Like literally some of them are like you're in the town and somebody's like, hey, I got a thing for this person, can you go give it to them? And you literally go one screen over. You're like, you couldn't just do this yourself, you jackass. Like you literally all you had to do was just walk over there.
Yeah, it's very old school,
but whatever. I mean, it's fine. It's fun upgrading like the town and then like upgrading the buildings once they've already been built to kind of unlock new materials and new stuff like that. Just that loop is fun. So
it's also funny when they ask you to go get like lumber, and I'm looking around like there's so many trees in this town. There's so many trees,
so many.
But you have to get them from the Great Forest where there's enemies, huh? All right, I'll go.
Right. Yeah. No, absolutely. Where all the monsters are. Yeah. Okay. Fine.
Got it.
I'll go. No, that lumber is more hardened and aged, so.
See, Jeff knows. Jeff gets it.
And then I just wanna real quick. So I still haven't finished Stranger of Paradise. I'm Final Fantasy.
Why is that still installed?
I have to finish it. I have to. I feel obligated to because I want to finish that game, and then I want to, because everyone's like, or not everyone, but like Derek even brought it up. People were like, "Oh, the ending is actually really cool and interesting." So I want to finish that game, see the ending, and be like, you know what? Fine, sure, okay, that was cool, but you're all freaking stupid because this game sucks. Like, this is a bad video game, and I'm tired of people being like, "Well, I mean, it's." Jack is so funny because he's just like whatever, like chaos.
The guy who puts on his headphones and walks away listening to like
Yes.
Mudvayne or whatever.
Papa Roach.
Cut
my life in 2 pieces.
It's just, it's
This
just,
is my last Jason.
it's just such a bad game. It's just so, it's hard to explain unless you're.
My
actually
wife's like, "What are you doing?"
She's like, "Why are you listening to like early 2000s rock?"
So,
Like,
your opinion has kind of swayed me or dissuaded me, I guess, into actually getting the game.
it's on sale right now, Jeff. I mean,
It better be like
curious.
$5 because I'm not buying it for more than
I mean,
like 5 or 10.
yeah,
It's on
honestly,
it's on the Epic Games sale right now, which, by the way, you guys should all check out the Epic Store sale, which is giving away 25% coupons every time you check out.
Yeah, I got 2 games. One of them was a release from this year, Forgive Me, Father. It looks like a. I haven't played it yet, obviously, because I don't really game, guys. I don't know if you know this about me.
just watch
We
Star
are
Trek.
aware.
But
They
Forgive Me,
also have
Father is
Final
like
Fantasy VII.
first person like Doom type animation, old Doom.
Oh, okay.
So it's like a retro shooter, but I heard the good things about on Steam and stuff. So I got it on Epic Games for like $10.
Well, FF7 Remake Intergrade is down to 50, which I know is still pricey, but it's not. I mean, it was normally 70, so you can get that one for a little cheaper.
Yeah,
at
how
least.
much is Stranger of Paradise? I think it's like 40 something right now.
I gotta search for it.
I bet it's gonna be like.
I think it's 25.
off.
I think it was 25% off. So yeah.
That game is normally 60. It's down to 45. So
40,
it's 25.
Yeah,
25.
Yeah, no, honestly, like $20, like the most.
I'm just gonna wait till it's the free
what it
Epic
feels
Game
like.
Store.
Yeah,
The free game in the Epic.
Yeah, the
Game
free
Store.
game.
Yeah.
I'll rely on you to be the one to tell us about that.
Like,
or it's on Game Pass maybe.
Like Tim especially, because obviously you, me, and Derek have like, you know, been doing this, like how I'm not like super into Souls. Like to me, it's like I kind of like, I'm like kind of over it. Yeah. And like I find it annoying that people compare this game to Souls, because it's like, what exactly about this is Souls? Like it's almost an insult to the Souls series, because like at least with that, like, yeah, I'm not like super into it, but I get it. You know,
maybe they're trying
like,
to say like, I'm frustrated like I am with Souls games.
Well, like, so like,
but it's a different kind of frustration.
I love that.
You don't realize
Yeah.
Well, like with this game, like you basically are building up your magic meter by doing the soul crush thing. That's where you see the enemies turn into like red crystals, and then he crushes them, and it builds up your magic meter. So if you die, that magic meter starts to dwindle down. So you lose that. So as opposed to losing souls, you're like losing your magic meter, because you want to have your magic meter be like as full as possible, so you can do more special
attacks. Game that does
but it's
that
like
right now, and I can't remember what it is though.
But that's not even really like it. I don't know, dude. It's just the combat is just so wonky, and it's like the timing of when you're trying to do your attacks just don't feel natural or good. Like Elden Ring feels good. Like when you get killed in Elden Ring or you make a mistake, you're like, I get it. Like I messed up. I was being impatient. I was being stupid, whatever. In this game, it's just like you take a corner and there's suddenly like 6 enemies and you're like, okay, fine. Let me try to, and they do like these special attacks, but they're all doing them at different times. So like the window is just not like, there's not a natural window to sort of like counter, like, I don't know. It's just, and that's the redeeming thing about this game is like, oh, the combat is competent, but like, there's just moments like that where it's just like this, but now this is falling apart because what you want me to do doesn't make sense because you're just throwing a bunch of enemies at me, or the timing is just purposefully off, and the boss is like way faster than I can react because the animations of Jack are just are not as fast as they should be to react to the enemy. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. It's such a bad game. It's so bad.
I had no interest in playing it when I first saw the trailer. I was like, boy, does this look cheesy and not that great. So I wasn't that interested, but the more I've heard about it and hearing you talk about it, if anyone on our podcast is going to convince me to play this game, it's going to be you.
Yeah.
And you have told me, I think it's got now 4 episodes of discussion about this about this game, maybe more than that, where it's been like, don't play this game, it's not good. And so.
But I wanna finish it and maybe even do like an actual like, you know, Chocobo Central episode about it and just totally just demolish it.
Yeah, and also like what went wrong with it. Like, okay, here's the elements they got right, and here's what they're trying to do, and here's what went wrong. And I'd love to hear that. That'd be great. Yeah, definitely. And Jeff, I know you've been playing more Kirby in the Forgotten Land. More unsung but excellent games of the year.
It's so good. The only opportunity for gaming that I have, because I swear to God, every week I have something coming up after work that I'm just always busy after work, and I'm not in the mood to game when I'm finally at home ready to relax.
Yeah, you got to watch some Star Trek.
So, right, exactly. It's important, guys. Right. I got to see how they're going to save a planet that they're not even supposed to interfere with, but they save them anyway.
Got to save the whales.
Go get them, Anson Mount.
Mount that Anson. So I don't know
what that means.
I don't either. So I work from home twice this week, and that gave me some time to turn on the Switch. And the only game that was like, I was scrolling through the games I had from this year that I wanted to, the only game that appealed to me that I had installed was Kirby. So I just jumped back in, and it's, again, that's something that I can actually play while I'm watching something more passively, like a YouTube thing that's longer, like a podcast or something. So like, I don't know, man. I just love the crap out of this game.
Super fun.
It's difficult to put down. I was like in the middle of playing it when you messaged me for this, and I just love, I don't know, the feeling of like I know that this isn't a new thing, but the feeling of like unlocking things, I just like that.
Well, the upgrading,
that's simple.
The upgrading is new for Kirby, I think.
The upgrading
is cool.
Yeah.
Okay, because that happens after you clear the whole first area. You go back to the store.
Some of those upgrades are so cool.
Yeah. I got the first 2 ones that were available to me, which is the volcano fire and the double throwing thing.
The like slicer thing, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And I just love the idea of anything you collected in those levels are now going to be at the store. It's just so simple, obviously, but like that opens up after you've beat that first area. So now I'm in like that beach area, kind of like at the 1/3 of the way through that. I like how the level changes. I don't know, they feel organic and not so jarring or something.
I like when you enter a level and it's kind of cinematic. Like he enters like a building or something and the camera kind of pans in a certain way and you're like, oh, this is pretty cool. Like he's entering it and it's kind of
that happened with the boss at the end of the mall. At the end of the mall, like the way he first appears is like it's a cinematic thing where he shows up in the window. And I know that's in the demo, but you have an opportunity to dodge him, or I was being an idiot and looked away, and then he grabbed me and threw me down. But that's such a cool thing, and actually you can control Kirby as
talking about the Mr. T gorilla. The Mr. T gorilla.
Yeah, Mr. T gorilla. Yeah.
Not racist. Totally not racist.
He's just got gold chains like Mr. T,
and the mohawk and
the mohawk. Yeah.
And he says a lot of racial slurs, but it's fine, guys. It's like not a big deal.
I think he says something about pitying somebody. I don't know.
Says F the police a lot.
He was calling Kirby a cracker.
Absolutely.
Only white people be swallowing shit like that. Cut that.
Oh man. So I gotta give I did not beat this game. I asked my son, like, how many levels do you think I played? Because I've joined him co-op several times. I probably only played about 1/3 of the levels. So there's a lot of game I haven't experienced, but I got to try out most of the powers because he unlocked all the powers and upgraded all of them. So we were playing around with all the powers, and it's super fun, man. Like it's so creative.
I love stumbling upon a thing that it's like a temporary thing that you can swallow, and it's like a bigger thing. Like a pipe, so you can like just roll down a hill.
Yep. The stairs is my favorite. The stairs.
Yeah, the stairs are ridiculous. Like
just flopping
over. Yeah. And
I still like the
cone. Like a big giant.
The cone
donut
is good.
Hole. The donut hole one where you can just
poof out some air.
Poof. Yeah. And use that to like ride your boat or whatever. And it's so ridiculous. It's so much fun though.
The light bulb is actually really creative. Like those.
I haven't gotten that one yet.
Oh, sorry. Okay, my bad.
It's not really a spoiler for me. I don't really care about that stuff. So.
Yeah, those are really creative. It's kind of like a haunted house kind of vibe. So.
Okay, well that's cool. Yeah, I do want to keep playing it because it's just I don't know. That's the kind of game I'm in the mood for. And I did in Chronicle something that's like a little more breezy of a play and you know,
Yeah, it's not going to make
Kirby
your
is
hands
the only
sweat and make you grind your teeth while you're
Yeah.
playing it. You know, it's not that
Nah.
kind of game.
Aiden Chronicle I would have played more if it were on if I got it on Switch or something, but I got it
Sure.
on Game Pass.
Yeah.
So I have to put it on my PC and like pay more attention to it. So that's the only reason I haven't really played that more, even though I remember feeling it was more of like a breezy game, even though it is an RPG. It's easier to get into.
Okay.
Do the tasks and stuff like that. Anyway, yeah, Kirby all the way, pretty much.
Well, I did finish Sleeping Dogs off my backlog Hall of Shame.
Yes.
I'm the only one who's completed
I'm
his
so glad
assignment.
somebody did it.
I think I spent according to Steam, about 15 hours total in that game, maybe a little more, maybe more under. I can't remember, but about 15 hours total. So I did some side stuff. Definitely left a lot on the table. I just kind of didn't. I didn't want to collect all the statues or go unlock all of the cop missions and whatever else. Like I after a while, I was like, I get it. I need to ram this car off the road and then beat up the guys when they get out. Like I understand what these missions are. But it's really good. It's got a incredibly violent kind of Yakuza story, like or even a mafia style story. It's very violent, very sad, very, elements of revenge, elements of like trying to decide who you really are because you've got these two identities you're trying to balance, and it's good. It's really good. Like I enjoyed it immensely, and I really hope that the Embracer Group greenlights a sequel. So.
Yeah, it was weird that they just never ever made one. They must have just not sold well. Or you know what? It's because I had looked it up and Square was the publisher, so that makes sense. I forgot. And then
it's funny how much you love and hate them. It really is great.
It's just when you love something, you want it to be the best version that it can be, so you scold them when they do something wrong.
We are hurt the most by those we love the most.
That's right.
So yeah, I loved it. What a great one to pick off my backlog. Hall of Shame. I'm happy about that. I think in June we'll do this again and we can kind of decide like, all right, we're gonna move on past the ones we tried. The idea was to at least try out the games that are on your backlog. Yeah. And if it doesn't click and you don't keep playing, it clicked for me because I happened to get you guys picked a really good game for me to go back and play. And so we'll try it again in June and see if we can knock it out.
It's not for me. It's not that BioShock isn't good. There's like a resource management aspect. It's not that huge of a resource management aspect, but there is some of it that I'm like, I'm not really in the mood for that right now. I kind of just want to do the Kirby thing, like something simple.
And also Mass Effect is fairly long, right? So
yeah. So. Is it? And the war asset stuff is like, I gotta go to these planets now and run away from Reapers as I scan.
Well, Andromeda is no joke. Like that's a big game.
Oh, that too. That thought we were talking about your first time playing through the trilogy for some reason.
Right.
But Andromeda, yes.
Yeah, that's no joke.
And there is scanning in that one too, I guess, right? It's scanning of planets and stuff.
Yeah, there
is.
It's not as detailed as the second one. None of them are, but
right.
Yeah.
I did need a bit of a palate cleanser, just kind of something to play mindlessly while I had a podcast on in the background or maybe a show on my phone on the side or something. So I saw this game on CD keys for pretty cheap, so I grabbed House Flipper on Steam.
Sure.
I also thought it'd be funny to because my wife's really into those house flipping shows, the HGTV shows and stuff. And so I was like, hey, you want to try playing this? She has no interest, but she thought it was like the idea of it was funny.
Sure.
This is legitimately just a simulation type of a game. That's all it is.
I figured.
It's a first-person game where you walk around completing various tasks, purchasing stuff. You can decorate the houses.
It's weird to make it first person and not like from a Sims perspective. Like from top down.
Agreed.
It's really weird. But
agreed. But yeah, it's not as simple as something like The Sims where you just click on a color and it shows up. They want you to do the tedious tasks and then you actually upgrade. You actually upgrade skills. Like
I'd rather play unpacking 3 more times.
Hard pat. Yeah.
It's totally unnecessary for them to make you paint one line at a time, and then after you do a certain number of those, it'll say you've earned a perk, an upgrade point, and now you can do 2 at a time, and you paint 75% faster. Like it starts to do that, and I'm like, all right, I see what you're doing here. But I have played it a lot because it's a mindless game that you can just kind of dive into while you're listening to something, and there is something very satisfying about you show up to this absolutely trashed out house. There's garbage everywhere. It's filthy, spray paint everywhere. So you take your various tools and you clean it up. You add furniture. You put new carpet down. Like there is something about that. I don't know what it is that I'm kind of like, that felt pretty good.
Tim, you can just do all these things in real life, right? Like mowing your lawn, flipping houses,
unpack things.
You're missing one key component is I get to stay right here. I don't have to move.
Fair enough.
To do those things.
Speaking of podcasts, you might be listening to. Have either of you tried the Batman Unburied podcast
No.
on Spotify? It's
No.
the new #1 apparently podcast. It's the first one to dethrone Rogan in like ages. But it's like, yeah, it's a totally original like radio. It's almost like a radio show. Voice acted by like Winston Duke is Bruce Wayne. Silence is Thomas Wayne.
Ooh.
Gina Rodriguez is Barbara Gordon. Riddler is Hassan Minhaj. But yeah, there's a lot of people in it like that. The way it starts too is like Bruce Wayne is he's a doctor now, but he's like a forensic pathologist, so he looks over dead bodies of murder victims, and he'll kind of get into the brain of the person that killed them, and like kind of try to discover what their motive was, how they killed them and stuff. And his parents are still alive at the start, and so like everything's totally different at the start of it, and you have to listen to it to find out what happens. Like why is he not really Batman suddenly? Sure. So there's like two stories kind of being told at the same time at the start of it, and how they converge it's very interesting. I didn't think I'd be into like radio show type podcasts, but
I've listened to a few that I've liked, and I want to try that one out because I do love the Batman.
The other one there's one I did actually try that was a similar radio show type vibe, and it's called Blockbuster, and it's like the history of, I think season 2 was about James Cameron making Titanic.
Okay.
And actually it's just about his career in general. It's just about him starting with Terminator and going to Aliens and then Titanic. I think that's where it ends, is Titanic. And it's just about him in general, and it's all voice acted, and they got some narrator that's kind of like moving things along so you don't spend too long in a certain year. And then the one, I think season 1 was about Steven Spielberg and John Williams, specifically their relationship. So like, man, the voice acting is top notch. They get to use the actual music.
That's cool.
God, yeah, if you're
the
a
only
Hollywood
one that
nerd, that's a good
the only one that I've really gotten into was this show called We're Alive, and it was it's a little cheesy at times. It was made at, I want to say like 2008, 2009, and then it ran for like 3-4 seasons, and then it was like, it has a conclusion, like it's a full story. It's their version of a zombie type apocalypse and the people trying to survive, and I thought it was really good, really well done. So I do recommend that one.
I got a mention with Silence too, by the way. There was a clip of an interview that was trending on TikTok of him talking about voice acting for video games, and how he's like, they just give me a script and I read it, but he doesn't have any direction at all because the scenes are not put together yet. So he has no visual representation of what's happening.
So wait, he's not putting on the suit and like acting it out, like.
No. Oh, you're talking about mocap. No, he's not doing that. So like,
it's just audio. It's just audio.
They have no sense of what is happening at all. He's like, that's the only instance that
you're talking about the podcast. I'm sorry, I thought you said when he's doing.
No. There's an interview. Okay. I was talking about an interview where he's talking about voice acting for video games, and he said that for video games, that's where he specifically relies on directors to tell him what to do.
Okay.
Because he has no sense of what's happening in the scene at all, because he has no visual representation. The script is out of order. Everything is totally off. So like, whereas he says in his words, I go to a TV show and a movie. I just I know what I'm doing, so I don't. The director doesn't have to tell me anything. And like, I'm like, this guy's.
Well,
so
he's
cool.
he's always he almost is always tasked as being the guy who knows a bunch.
Yeah.
And like he knows these very complex things, like in the Horizon games, but also in Fringe, he plays a character who has incredible knowledge about stuff. Anyway, he's good at that kind of character.
Quick aside, I went to like a Minute Clinic last week, and on the TV they had like some like alien conspiracy like show playing, and Silence, that actor.
Oh, that's awesome.
He was narrating.
Narrating. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, he was like on the screen, and he's like the aliens, and like just like
his voice is so good.
Yeah. One of the most recognizable. But I just found it interesting that video game acting, for the most part, doesn't really give you context. For what you're doing. The director has to tell you the context, more or less.
Yeah, I would imagine that's true in a lot of. I wonder if something like the Naughty Dog games, it seems like they do a lot of acting in the same room together, like full scenes, though.
Right.
So
the mocap folks, I'm sure they can do things in a linear fashion, somewhat, or they have a full script.
Yeah.
But there's no full script for Horizon, for example. They just kind of go, all right, here's what you're reading today, and
right,
kind of out of order.
I kind of figured that would be mocap. That's interesting.
I'm kind of surprised it's not too, but apparently he said it was voice acting that he was.
Well, they do a really good job with the animating it. Then
I think you guys are talking about two different things again. So,
No, I'm talking about voice
I'm talking
acting.
about Horizon.
And
So in Horizon's Forbidden West, he does mocap.
he does? Okay.
He has to.
That's what I was saying. That's basically what I was implying. I was like, oh, like that's weird that he's not doing mocap in Horizon. Like,
He made it sound like he was in a booth. He could have been talking about other video game experiences.
other games, yeah.
Some of the expressions he
he's done
makes,
a
I'm like,
lot.
that's him. Like that's him standing there doing that right now. You know? But
like that's like a snarky look.
Yeah. As usual, you're 2 steps behind Aloy. Like,
okay,
I see. Like it's.
I see the voice acting, or sorry, the mocap. Yeah.
Okay. So he must have been talking about maybe some other games that.
Yeah, he must have been talking about just being in an actual voice.
But he has done. Yeah, he has done video game voices in the past.
Tons.
So.
Yeah.
Last game I want to talk about is V Rising. V Rising.
V Rising.
Are we talking about
V?
Getting that V Rising, guys. We're talking about this is a game about feminism, right?
Instead of P Rising,
it is.
We're talking about V Rising.
P declining, V rising. So this game, I had no idea that it was in development. I guess it's been in development for a while. I don't know if they did any kind of Kickstarter or anything, but it's, had a pretty decent following of people who are excited about it. There's a big build up to it. And just like when Valheim got released, I didn't know anything about it till it was released and kind of featured on Steam. And I was like, oh, what's this? Let me take a look at it. Same exact thing. It just got released into early access. And I started reading some of the reviews like I do for a lot of games. I'll click on it. Let me just get an idea of what it is. It says you might like this because you've played Conan, The Exiles, and Valheim. I was like, all right, what does that mean? What elements of those games is it talking about?
Yeah.
And so I started reading the comments, and like, this is as if Valheim and Diablo had a beautiful baby. And I was like,
interesting.
What do you mean by that?
Beautiful Norse baby.
So I watched some of the videos, thought it looked pretty interesting.
Right.
It was only $20, and I was like, I'm gonna go for it. It's a small studio. Sometimes I feel better about helping a small studio for some reason.
Is it for real only 20 and not on a sale? It's just regular 20? Wow.
It's 20, and then they offer you what's called the Founders Pack. The idea there is just to throw them an extra $30, and they'll give you some skins and some extra in-game stuff.
Cool.
But the idea is you're helping support the developers more, and they're not giving you a huge deal. They're not getting $30 worth of content by any stretch. It's just, I guess that's fairly common in some of these games, is where you can buy the extra Founders Pack to help out. Anyway, all that to say, so I bought the game, downloaded it. It opens with this cutscene where, very kind of opening a Lord of the Rings style, where you have a big battle that happened in the past. In this case, it's between vampires and humans, and they kind of show like how the vampires were defeated and sent back to the grave, essentially, and now they're rising again. So there you go, V rising. Vampires are coming back, and the idea is they want you to either join a PvE or PvP server for the most part. You don't have to. I'll get to that. But so you can join a server where you and other player vampires can travel through this pretty big map, pick a spot to kind of build your fortress, build your castle. You can raid each other. There's certain items and gates and stuff that you can kind of keep protected. So a little bit of like Rust or maybe even Ark, I think, might do that, where you can battle each other if you want. Or you can do a PvE server where you and other players don't attack each other at all. You can't, even if you wanted to, but you can work together on taking on all the enemies in the game. So I did PvE, and I set it to 1 player and no one can join. So I just wanted to try the single player experience, and I am finding it to be awesome as a single player game. And I can see how it'd be fun with multiple players as well. I could see how that would be fun. Just like with Valheim, it's going to be a lot of fun with friends.
Yeah.
But essentially the idea of the game is you create your vampire, which is already cool. You create what your vampire looks like. There's no classes or anything. I'll tell you what.
I was gonna say, I don't know what kind of classes you can be.
There's no classes, but there are ways you can adjust how you want to play, and I'll talk about that in a second. Because there's not really levels or classes. You're not doing that. It's all gear based. It's what you equip that kind of changes stuff. And I guess Valheim's the same way. You don't really level up, although you do start to increase your skills if you run or swim a lot.
Sure.
Those skills will go up, and they'll just take less stamina. So you create your vampire. You come out of your coffin at the beginning, and then you just escape from this grave, and it doesn't really tell you a lot of what to do. It gives you some guidance here and there. It kind of tells you, here's the next thing to unlock. Hey, to unlock this, build these walls, and then you can look to see the recipe for those walls. Okay, I need a bunch of lumber, so you go start chopping down trees. So it gives you a guide that way a little bit, but it does not give you like, here's a waypoint, go here. So you get out into the open, you start building. I built like a very basic little fortress, fought a few wolves, a bear that was actually really hard to kill because I was really underleveled. And once you start building a few things, the way you build your fortress, it's all grid based because it's an overhead kind of isometric Diablo view.
Right.
And first you set down your castle heart, and every enemy you kill can give you this blood essence, which is your main kind of resource. It's these little red orbs, and I'm already like 9 hours, 10 hours into the game. I have way more than I know what to do with. So they give you plenty of those throughout the game.
Cool.
And that powers your castle. So it's called your castle heart. So it's like this little statue in the middle of wherever you're building that has this glowing red orb. And if it runs out, then you'll get a notice that your castle is decaying, and there's actually like a decay rate on your castle. If you leave it empty for a while with no castle heart, your castle essentially dies and turns into ruins, I guess, after a while. So they give you motivation to kind of like keep your castle alive and that kind of thing. So you can build workbenches, research tables, different refineries and stuff. The idea is you collect lumber, turn those into planks, use those to build whatever. Like kind of your basic crafting survival thing that you would expect. The difference is that I think the combat is way more complex than I thought. Like I loved Valheim, my favorite game of last year. The combat isn't super complex. Like there's a few different things you can do, but you just kind of are whacking things, and hopefully you get a better weapon, whack it harder the next time you hit it. And then also you get like a shield, right? You can learn parry in Valheim. There's a few little things there that you can do that are different. This legitimately at the beginning, I was like, oh, you just hold in the button to attack. This is super boring. And I finally got a bone sword, and I was like, all right, I'm just holding the button to attack. I didn't realize once you upgrade to a copper sword, now you've upgraded your second weapon ability. And then also as you defeat certain enemies, now you unlock all kinds of magic or boosts. You have a dash move that you can do at the beginning where it kind of leaves a little shadow of where you were standing, and you can make enemies attack that for a certain amount of time. Well, over time, you can get different versions of that where you do a dash and then you can make that explode when an enemy gets close to it. You do a dash and you can poison someone if they touch it. So like you get all kinds of upgrades, all kinds of magic you can cast. And it really creates what I feel like is essentially, I want to be a little more of a magic casting class. So I'm going to select the moves into my hotbar that I want to use for that. Or
that's where it sounds like then it starts to become really like Diablo focused.
It feels more that way. I'm not suggesting it's anywhere near as complex in what you can do with Diablo builds and all that stuff. It's not that, but you certainly can customize the way you want to play. You get a sword, axe, a giant mace. You get a spear that has a really cool combo move you can do as well. And they're each good against different enemy types. But it really just depends on how you want to play. And so you unlock this thing called a blood altar, and you use that to decide what I forget what they call it, but it's these special enemies that have V blood. Basically, they've got some kind of strong vampire blood in them. Even if they're human characters, they've got some kind of V blood resource that you need. So you can use the blood altar to track them, and it's a little bit Elden Ring style. If you played that game, where all of a sudden it just kind of shows you a glowing direction of where to head, it gives you that like go this direction, and you eventually, if you keep following that, it keeps refreshing for you to kind of see what direction to go if you're tracking their blood. It's kind of like it's almost like a smelling thing where you're smelling, and you eventually stumble across an enemy. They're a little bit of a boss bar comes up, you can tell, I'm encountering a boss right now. And if you defeat them, then at the very end you get the option to hold this button in to feed, and you'll just absorb their blood and life power, and then you get a new skill, and it unlocks something new to craft and all this stuff. Very satisfying moment of like, I beat a boss and I just upgraded some new thing. And it's not level based, you don't get experience, but like as you add a new piece of armor or an upgraded version of your sword, your gear level goes up. A little Destiny-like, right? Where you have your gear level is your more important thing to worry about. So I really like all those systems. The upgrades are really fun. I think the combat's surprisingly fun and challenging. Like I'm at the point now where I'm already like, this game is going to be pretty tough. I think I'm at gear level 34 or something. I'm not sure how high it can go at this point in the game. I think I'm maybe a fourth of the way through the enemy list, like the boss list, the V blood list, whatever it's called. And what's really cool is the day-night cycle. So up in the top, you see this little sun, and it'll tell you what time it is, and it slowly rotates. And the shadows are what you have to keep an eye on. So the game very much relies on, like, there's actually a position of the sun somewhere in the sky. You can't look up, but you can just tell by the shadows where it is. And so the sun is constantly slowly moving, and so the shadows in the forest or wherever you are slowly moving. And then if it's daytime, you got to stay in those shadows, or you'll start to glow, and then all of a sudden you'll take major damage super fast, and it'll kill you. Like obviously you're a vampire.
Or a sin of flames.
So traveling around the daytime is risky. I've noticed more enemies and better drops. I don't know if that's intentional or just happens to be coincidence. Like I happen to get better drops, but I feel like they might be rewarding you
Probably,
for exploring during the day, maybe, because it's way more dangerous. And then of course it'll say the moon is rising, and now you can run freely wherever you want. Every few nights you'll get a blood moon where your speed and attack is up. There's like a red moon, and you
buddy,
powered, which is really cool. And then without spoiling too much, in case you guys do play it, you can also morph into other creatures. There's certain V-Blood enemies that give you the ability to morph into other creatures.
Can you become a Batman?
Because at first I was like, where's my run button? Where's my mouse? Like you're kind of slow, and there's a lot of like walking from point A to point B, especially if you die. You might have to go a long way to go back to get not all your items, but some items you might leave behind. But eventually the first thing that you morph into increases your speed by a bunch. So
I wonder if you'll be able to get like equipment maybe that allows you to traverse the daytime, Tim.
Well, there are things that
increase your. You unlock sunscreen a little bit.
There's basically there's sun resistance.
Yeah. So there you go.
That's cool.
SPF 50. No, it's certain items, and like there's like some kind of magic ring you can put on that boosts your sun resistance by 15.
Yeah.
So it takes a while. Like you can go through large sunny patches longer before it starts to hurt you, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, they're very forgiving. Like even the smallest little patch of shadow, like from a branch, even if you're standing in that, like it's very forgiving. Like if you're kind of stuck, like there's even times when I was crossing a bridge and I didn't see any trees or shade, and I needed to get across, so I just kind of hugged the wall where there was a tiny little shadow, and it kept me safe. Like I was just close enough to it that it was keeping me.
It would be very cool, and an homage to the Castlevania anime if there was an armor, Tim, that you could wear to help you with the sunlight.
There probably is. I've only unlocked 3 armor sets so far. From the research table, you can either find books dropped by enemies at random, which respawn, I think, every cycle of the day. They always respawn. Even the treasure chests and everything respawn. So it's all very randomized, I think, with what gets dropped and what's there. You can find these books that you can then take back, and it's a recipe for some new item to craft, or some new, whether it's a piece of gear or maybe just something for your castle or whatever. Or you collect these just generalized papers, and once you get 50 of those, it'll unlock a random recipe. The building is pretty fun. It starts out with like a very basic wooden fortress, and then over time you unlock the ability to take all the stones that you've mined just by like bashing rocks with your mace, and you can turn those into bricks, and now you can create stone floors. You can pick a design which looks pretty cool. These big reinforced stone walls that have that vampire cathedral castle look to them, and once you do that, then it actually puts a roof over top, because at the beginning you don't have a roof. And now you've got an actual legit like vampire castle, and you're setting up all your different like very blood themed items throughout it just looks really cool. It looks very much like.
Do enemies attack the castle? Like, do they come up and just
other players can? I haven't had any. I have had like a couple wolves that were biting at the wall for a minute.
Okay,
that's about it.
Biting at the wall.
Yeah, like Valheim, you'll be invaded in Valheim, right? Like you'll get like a random event of invasion of enemies.
Yep.
Yeah.
And this, I haven't seen anything like that for PvE. I know in PvP you can defend or attack other castles.
Yeah.
So, but
that sounds
dude,
stressful.
it's a really cool little game. Like I love that it's got Valheim elements, because it's the way that they do leveling. There isn't really leveling, and the way that you do some building and unlocking of things, but also some, I think, pretty Diablo light, maybe even Torchlight if you played that game, a little bit like those kind of games where it's an action RPG in some ways. And I think it's really cool. But yes, there's 2 things that if you hate, you might hate this game. If you hate a lot of resource collecting, that might wear on you. But thankfully, once you get into the groove of playing the game and just fighting enemies, so many resources drop, especially if you're fighting a big like stone golem or something. He'll just trash trees all around you while you are battling. And so you'll pick up a ton of lumber that
just
way.
Like Valheim, right? The trolls.
Just like the trolls, yeah.
The trolls whacking at the trees.
Exactly. But collecting resources, especially early on, is a bit of a chore. I don't mind it because I like that kind of stuff. I like the feeling of like it's hard at first, and then you progress quickly. Next thing you know, you've got more than you know what to do with. So I'm okay with that pattern personally. Also, there is a lot of walking and or running, depending on if you have the right, ability to morph into something yet. But yeah, there can be. They do have some warp points that you can discover, but it's really strict on what you can travel with. And again, I understand what they're doing. They don't want you to. They want this to be a survival RPG where you like actually have to go out, adventure out, and then work your way back to your home base. I understand what they're doing, and it also makes your castle location selection pretty important. I picked a spot kind of in the corner, which was dumb. I should have waited till I got farther to the middle, and I guess I could move it if I want to. I could dismantle everything and move it. But you kind of want to be more centrally located so you can branch out and explore and then come back.
Yeah.
So they're very strict. Like almost any resource can't be taken through a teleporter. So I did see that later on there's a recipe I'll unlock that allows me to build my own teleporter. So I guess I'll be able to put one in my castle at some point, which will be nice. But yeah, so if the idea of doing lots of kind of traveling back over, areas that you've been before, if that bothers you for some reason. But again, if you've played survival RPGs, that's not something, you're not thinking about it that way. You're thinking about collecting resources, finding the right enemies, getting the right drops. You're thinking more about that. But I don't think it's procedurally generated. I just think that the encounters with where enemies are, that stuff seems pretty random. What enemies spawn in certain bandit camps and stuff, that seems pretty random, other than the bosses. But yeah, the map seems pretty set from what I can tell. So I'm loving this game, man. This game is a blast. I don't know that it's like the next Valheim or Elden Ring where I can't stop playing it, but it's one of those games that I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna put some time into this because building up your castle is really fun. The gargoyles, statues, and all that stuff is really fun to decorate with, and I just think it's cool.
For $20,
it's not that $20 is a good price.
It's not anything to cry about. So
yeah, it has some of those elements of tediousness that some folks might get turned off by, but not me. V Rising,
That's right. I'm all about that V Rising.
So
I'm pro V for sure.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah.
Especially when it's like around this area or another area that I won't want to display to you guys right now.
When the V's rising,
vampires.
I'm rising.
Vampires.
You know
is that V Rising?
When the V's rising, I'm rising. You know what I'm saying?
I understand why they called it that because that's exactly what's happening, but it is a little strange. But they, to their credit. Oh, I meant to talk about real quick. There's not a stamina system, which can be a really frustrating element of a lot of these types of games where you do too many things, your stamina runs out. Instead, it's all about the blood that you have, which is actually a really cool mechanic they've built in. So you have a little meter in the middle of the screen, like kind of near your health and near what buffs you currently have. It's a little blood meter. It's like a little orb. And it either fills up or drains based on how much blood you have. And a lot of stuff costs blood, like morphing into another animal costs blood, or doing certain things. Healing yourself costs blood. And then, of course, to get it back, you need to feed. So either an enemy needs to be weak enough you can feed on them, or you can do it to or there's rats or hearts. As you defeat enemies, they could drop a heart, and you can just chomp on that to refill the blood. What's cool about the system they've implemented is what enemy you feed on could give you a buff. So if you find a wolf that had, like, all wolves have what's called creature blood, and it'll actually say creature, but then there's a percentage beside it, and it's all very random. Like every day it resets, and so you might run across a wolf that has 1% creature blood. That's going to give you a very minor buff, but you might run across one that has like 18% or like 30%, and that's going to maybe take you to the second tier of that buff, where not only are you moving faster, but now you're going to hit harder or something. Like, based on what you feed on, you'll get some buff for a while. As soon as you have to feed again or have to use a rat or a heart to refill that, you'll lose whatever that buff was, because it's kind of like your most recent victim essentially is
fresh blood.
Yeah, is what gives you that. But I thought that was a really cool mechanic. They didn't want to do a stamina meter, but there is a cooldown on a lot of your moves, and there's a limitation to, you have to be careful about how much you do because of that little blood meter, which I thought was pretty cool. Yeah. So I like it, man. They've created some cool mechanics here, and they've done a really interesting mixture of game genres that I am digging. So there you go. As you can see, the background.
Vampires.
Yeah, vampires. So I think that's all I got for this week. I don't have anything else in the notes. Anything I forgot that you guys want to cover?
Maybe
How y'all doing? Y'all doing okay?
How are your
How you
V's
doing?
doing?
Mine's pretty good.
Okay.
It's pretty good.
Pretty gaping right now.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I'm sorry. I'm immediately sorry.
I can tell you a funny story about gaping V's if you want.
No, I don't think we should.
Yeah, I think we should forego that this week.
Yeah.
Maybe next week.
Okay.
Or
Save
maybe
that
after
for
we
next
stop
time.
recording. I'm a little curious, but also not sure.
You're curious about the gaping V?
Maybe they should have called it that. V gaping. That would have been more interesting.
VK.
That would have been a different category of Steam games, I think.
We're all 5 years old.
All right. Well, that's it.
Newsweek. News-wise, very happy Daredevil's coming back. To Disney.
Yeah. They did announce that. Yeah.
It's a continuation of the Netflix show.
Yeah. I don't think we would see this till 2023 at the earliest, but that's cool that it's happening.
But I'm happy it's official because
Agreed.
That cast deserves it. Yeah.
Yep. As long as Foggy's a little bit less like you shouldn't do that. Like as long as he's a little bit less.
And then he guilts him. You should do that.
I know. Yeah.
He's such a flip-flopper. Flip-flop Foggy.
Yeah. Other than that,
houses.
Keep all the rest of it. All right. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for being here. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Ain't love until you poop on her.
God damn.